Meeting to order, please. Could you have a seat? Thank you. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councillor Clements?
Present.
Councillor Langevin?
Present.
Councillor Marcucci?
Present.
Councillor Moriarty?
Present.
Councillor Nicola?
Present.
Councillor Peliquin?
Present.
Councillor Regis?
Excused.
Councillor Vandal?
Present.
7 present, 1 excused.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3, consider and accept Town Council meeting minutes of Monday, April 8th, 2013.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councillor Langevin?
Yes.
Councillor Marcucci?
Yes.
Councillor Moriarty?
Yes.
Councillor Nicola?
Yes.
Councillor Peliquin?
Yes.
Councillor Vandal?
Yes.
Councillor Clements?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Agenda item number 4, subcommittee reports. A, general government would be Councillor Regis. The minutes of the General Government Subcommittee, Tuesday, April 23rd, 2013. A meeting of the General Government Subcommittee was held on Tuesday, April 23rd in the Rice Conference Room. In attendance were Chairwoman Regis, committee members Councillor Langevin, Councillor Peliquin, and citizen members Larry Spinelli and Michael Janes. Also in attendance were Town Manager Clark, Attorney Michael Scott, Monique Manna, and John Faris. The meeting was called to order at 7 o'clock. First agenda item, vote to approve the contract between the Town of Southbridge and Stantec Consulting Services, Incorporated, to commence the design construction for Phase 2 reconstruction of the Southbridge Municipal Airport in the amount of $192,305.46. Said funding from the Tornado Insurance account, and to submit to Council for ratification. Mr. Clark stated this is Phase 2 of the reconstruction. Phase 1 was to rebuild the hangar, which has been done. Phase 2 encompasses design reconstruction, replacement of the Quonset hangar, and reconstruction of the terminal building. Questions and discussions were held on the profitability of the airport. A motion was made by Councillor Langevin, seconded by Larry Spinelli, with a favorable recommendation to Council to approve the contract with Stantec Consulting Services, Incorporated, to commence the design construction for Phase 2 reconstruction of the Southbridge Municipal Airport in the amount of $192,305.46, said funding from the Tornado Insurance account. Vote by a show of hands. 4 approved, 1 opposed would be Councillor Langevin. Agenda item number 2, vote to approve the Common Goals Letter of Agreement between the Town of Southbridge and Casella in order to maximize landfill operations and to facilitate the build-out of the town's industrial park, and to submit to Council for ratification. And agenda item number 3, vote to authorize the town manager and town attorney to sell a portion of the town property along Commercial Drive in accordance with the RFP for the triangle and roadway parcels necessary in order to continue the development of its industrial park and to complete any other closing documents necessary, and to submit to Council for ratification. Mr. Clark gave an overview encompassing agenda items 2 and 3. The concept is to build a road extension from the entrance of the landfill on Barefoot Road to the connection of Commercial Drive to lessen the commingling of commercial traffic and public traffic, for example, school buses from Charlton, which use the road, and to sell the triangle of property created by building this road. Casella is willing to build the road from the entrance of their property down to where the town property starts. The successful bidder for the triangle piece would pay for the construction of the rest of the road in lieu of paying for the land. This would then make Barefoot Road a private road instead of a public way. Attorney Scott said the intent is to maximize the usefulness of the property to benefit the town, the industrial park, and Casella. He reviewed the agreement letter and detailed its contents. A motion was made by Larry Spinelli and seconded by Michael Janes with a favorable recommendation to Council to authorize the town manager and town attorney to sell a portion of the town property along Commercial Drive in accordance with the RFP for the triangle and roadway parcels necessary in order to continue the development of its industrial park and to complete any other closing documents necessary. Vote by a show of hands. 4 approve, 1 abstained. Amelia Peliquin. Councilor Peliquin. A motion was made by Larry Spinelli and seconded by Michael Janes with a favorable recommendation to council to approve the Common Goals Letter of Agreement with Casella in order to maximize landfill operations and to facilitate the build-out of the town's industrial park. Vote by a show of hands. 4 approved, 1 abstained. Councilor Peliquin. Agenda item number 4. Vote to approve changes to Schedule 5 change in hourly rate of precinct workers to reflect more closely to minimum wage. Mr. Clark stated the rate is changed to reflect a change in hourly wage to $8.50 an hour for inspectors, $9.50 an hour for clerks, and $10.50 an hour for wardens. A motion was made by Councilor Langevin and seconded by Larry Spinelli with a favorable recommendation to council to approve the changes for Schedule 5 change in hourly rate of precinct workers to reflect more closely to minimum wage. Vote by a show of hands. All in favor, 5-0. Agenda item number 5, vote to approve the amendments to the town manager's employment agreement relating to sections 4-C, 6, and 7-C, effective August 19th, 2013, and to submit to council for ratification. Mr. Clark discussed the requested changes to his contract. Section 4C changes his increase from 1% to 2% as per the non-union employees. Mr. Clark stated that in the past year, when all town employees received 1%, he decreased his increase to 1%. Now he is asking that his increase also equal the non-union employees' increase. Section 6A is just to have the council acknowledge the manager's engaging as a professor, and B, to state his performing municipal hearing officer duties when needed at no additional cost to the town. Section 7C would credit 5 weeks vacation in lieu of 4, effective August 19th, 2013. A motion was made by Larry Spinelli and seconded by Councilor Langevin with a favorable recommendation to approve the amendments to the town manager's employment agreement and to be placed on the town council agenda for the same night as the manager's review. Vote by a show of hands. 4 approved, 1 opposed. Michael Janes. Agenda item number 6. Review and vote to establish the Bicentennial Ad Hoc Committee as submitted and to submit to council for ratification. Mr. Clark said this establishes the committee and they are able to get things in order. A motion was made by Larry Spinelli and seconded by Councilor Langevin to approve the establishment of the Bicentennial Ad Hoc Committee. Vote by a show of hands. All in favor. A motion to adjourn was made by Councilor Peliquin and seconded by Councilor Langevin. Vote by a show of hands. All in favor, 5-0. Meeting adjourned at 9 o'clock. Respectfully submitted, Evelyn Rivera, Recording Clerk. I believe that there is a General Government Subcommittee meeting coming up on May 14th, but I'm sure that that will be advertised well in advance. We have B, DPW, Councilor Vandal.
Thank you. A meeting of the Department of Public Works Subcommittee was held on Wednesday, April 24, 2013, in the Rice Conference Room. In attendance were myself, Council Marcucci, Council Moriarty, Council Peliquin, Acting Public Works Director Blakely, and citizen member Morin. Council Peliquin arrived at 7:08. I call the meeting to order at 7:06. Agenda item number 1, review and vote. Could you take over, please? Yeah, I'm having a rough time. Thank you.
Agenda item number 1, review and vote to approve the contract between the town of Southbridge and Freitas Construction of Ludlow, Mass. for the Charlton Street Reconstruction Project in the amount of $423,883. Motion by Councilor Marcucci to approve the contract between the town of Southbridge and Freitas Construction of Ludlow, seconded by citizen member Morin. Discussion. Acting Public Works Director Blakely described the project. She noted that references have been checked on Freitas Construction and they were favorable. She explained the bid process and the two phases of the project. Phase 1 includes the drainage improvements. She explained that funding has been obtained for Phase 1, which would partially be funded through grant money, and the remaining would be Chapter 90 funds. Phase 2 would be funded through what funds remain from Phase 1 and Chapter 90 funds. She noted that it is a fast-moving project with a completion date for Phase 1 of June 15, 2013, in order to meet a June 30th, 2013 grant deadline. The second phase will follow with a completion date of October 18, 2013, for the repaving. Councilor Marcucci asked about the timeline and the area that would be paved. Acting Director Blakely explained the second phase would take approximately 1 week to complete. Areas that would be paved would include all of Brookside Road and from the Southbridge-Charlton line to approximately 400 feet past where the tornado damage occurred on Charlton Street. There would be no blasting, but rock would be broken up with rock hammers. Citizen Member Moran asked about the footage length on Charlton Street that would be paved. Acting Public Works Director showed the footage on the plans. She pointed out where the drainage improvements would be made. A vote was taken by a show of hands. The motion carried unanimous of all present. Motion by Councilor Marcucci to close the meeting, seconded by Citizen Moran. A vote was taken by a show of hands. The motion carried unanimous of all present. The meeting adjourned at 7:15. Respectfully submitted, Anna Smith, recording clerk. Do you have any meetings scheduled, Councilor?
No, I don't.
Not
No,
at
I
this
don't.
time.
Not
Thank
at
you.
this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir. Okay. Education and Human Services Subcommittee. Councilor Marcucci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The EHS Subcommittee meeting was held on Monday, April 22nd. In attendance were myself, Councilor Moriarty, citizen members Holly Christo and Martina Shea. Also in attendance were Councilor Nicola, Town Manager Clark, Ronald Plouffe, and Mike Trombley. Councilor Clements was excused. I called the meeting to order at 7 p.m. Agenda item number 1, discuss the concept of having the town operate and the state own the Petro Pool and to approve the request for proposal to accomplish the same. Mr. Clark said the pool is almost done but has not been turned over to the town. The state would like the town to take over the management and operation of the pool. The concept is that this is a local pool opposed to a regional. The state would like to have a minimal funding of this facility, and through revenues for the operation of the pool, it would decrease the funding from the state. A proposal is being presented to the state. The town will be putting out an RFP for a contractor to operate the pool. Discussion and suggestions were made regarding the running of the concession stand and the operation of the pool. It was basically a meeting to discuss. There was no recommendation that was needed to go to council. A motion to adjourn was made by Martina Shea, seconded by Holly Christo. All in favor. And I do have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow evening, Madam Chair, and that is the Bay Path budget and the school department's budget. And that meeting actually is starting at 6 p.m. Okay. So thank you.
Thank you. D, Planning and Development, Councilor Clements.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No minutes and no meetings scheduled at this time.
Okay, thank you. And E, Protection of Persons and Property, Councilor Langevin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No report, but I do have a meeting scheduled for May 6th in the Rice Conference Room, and I believe on the agenda will be some open positions in the police department and on the auxiliary.
Okay.
Thank you.
We will also have the deputy chief for the fire for you.
Okay.
Ready to go?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, agenda item number 5, Chairwoman's announcements. It's been a while since we've been up here. Usually it's every other week, but this month it's been a couple of weeks. And in that time, an awful lot has happened in our fair state. And I see an awful lot of uniforms out in the audience tonight. I would just like to take a moment to thank each and every first responder, emergency personnel worker that is here this evening in the spirit of what's taken place in Boston and in Watertown. And I'd like to just take one moment of silence to remember those who lost their lives on April 15th and later on in the week, and all of those who are struggling to make sense of it and get on with their lives, and the rest of us who will always be struggling to make sense of something that makes no sense. Thank you, and please never forget. Tomorrow, for any of you who haven't been answering your phone all day and all last week and all weekend long, is a special election. Please remember to go out and vote for the Senate seat that was vacated by John Kerry. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize our very own town manager, Christopher Clark, who will be, please excuse me, I had my paper right here, and there we go. He's been selected to receive an Action Hero Award on behalf of the Worcester Community Action Council. And that's coming up on Thursday, May 16th at MCPHS University in Worcester. And the reason is because Mr. Clark was instrumental in relocating Southbridge's Head Start to a more suitable location, and did so into a very cost-effective location that they're very, very happy with, and it was not an easy task. I want to thank you for your creativity and your quick response to their needs, and congratulations on this award that you will be receiving, Mr. Clark. I also wanted to thank the council for getting the town manager evaluations into me. Thank you very much for your thoughtfulness in putting them together, and the hard work that you obviously put forth. They will be coming forward in the next general government meeting that Councilor Regis has. We will be reviewing the tabulated evaluations. And also, I wanted to mention that I have requested through the town manager's office an update from the bylaw review committee for our next town council meeting, so hopefully we'll get some idea as to when they'll be completed with their review of our bylaws. And that's all I have tonight. I'd like to turn it over now to the town manager, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have several this evening, but as always, we'll endeavor to go quickly. We did receive a certificate from the Medical Library Association that certified Margaret Morrissey attended some continuing education courses in regards to continuing outreach with immigrants in the area. So I did wish to acknowledge her efforts to continue to work in that area to be more user-friendly to all the residents of the community. Next, I have received from National Grid a payment scam that they're alerting people to, that apparently there are some folks, scammers, that are demanding payment for delinquent utility bills or for problems with your meter and are requesting for cash up front. This is a scam. National Grid would not do that, and they have provided, if you're not sure, if you receive an inquiry, that they do have a 800 number to contact. So if you're unsure who you have on the other end of the phone, I would suggest calling the National Grid's customer service, and the electric number is 1-800-322-3223, and for gas, it's 1-800-640-1595. So that is something apparently fairly rampant throughout Massachusetts. We also did receive a notice from Shana 8 that has invited folks to attend a May Day Mental Health Summit. It's going to be on May 1st, coming up, from 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Clark University in Tilton Hall. Admission is free. Breakfast and lunch will be provided. If you're interested, you can contact Common Pathways Online at gmail.com or by phone at 508-459-9664. Also, we have from the Healthy Families group here in the community, the 8th annual community baby shower. If you're expecting or have a baby under 6 months, you're invited to food prizes, gift bags, and information on Wednesday, May 15th from 1 to 4 at Notre Dame LaSalle Hall at 444 Main Street. For more information, you're welcome to call 508-909-0061, extension 10, and ask for Charlotte. As was alluded to in one of the minutes, the town is in negotiations with the state in regards to the A.J. Petro Pool. I do wish to, located over on Randolph Street. The good news is that we do anticipate the pool will be open this summer. The town is currently in negotiations with the state for the operation of the pool. The intent of the proposal is that the state would retain ownership of the pool and the town would actually just help in managing the pool. Hopefully we'll have more details. We do have an RFP that will be going out, and the expected return date on that RFP is May 15th. And it would be my intent to try to have a recommendation to council, only because they need to recruit the lifeguards and so on, for the May 20th council meeting. So I am looking for kind of a quick turnaround in regards to that so they can get working, with the pool opening date being at least tentatively scheduled for June 25th. We also received another notice from National Grid. They will be doing some work on the gas mains in the neighborhood of 36 to 345 East Main Street here in Southbridge. And the tentative start date is this week with an approximate end date of May 31st. They're saying that most of the work will occur during normal working hours, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., Monday to Friday. And National Grid customers may have a scheduled time period for a transfer of service to the new main, where there'll be short interruptions of gas service for this purpose to be completed, and technicians will need access to the existing gas service and meter. So if you live in the neighborhood between 36 and 345 East Main, please be advised that there's some work that's going to be scheduled to be done. The chairwoman had already mentioned that tomorrow is Election Day. For folks that may be new to the community, the election day is obviously tomorrow, April 30th. The primary election, the polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and the voting is located here in Southbridge down at the community center, which I believe is 153 Chestnut Street. And then lastly, we do have several presentations tonight, and I have scheduled one for the next meeting on May 13th. I do have one of my students, or a couple of my students, that wrote papers on the having a landfill in your community and what impact that will have. I had told council I would circulate their work. I actually looked at some of their work. I will circulate those reports that they wrote up, and I do have one student that will come in and actually present her findings. So with the indulgence of the council, I'd like to give the student the opportunity to do that, and hopefully we can do that at the May 13th meeting. And that concludes my comments this evening, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Okay. And now we come to the swearing in and the presentation portion of the council meeting. I'm going to start with, these are all presentations this evening. First one is going to be Chief DeFranco. I believe you're going to come forth.
Good evening, all. Believe it or not, we were here about a year ago, plus 1 week. And I hoped we wouldn't have to be here to give these types of awards out. But I'm glad we are. We have some more miracles this year. Just to give you a little background on how many calls we do, in fiscal year 2012, we did 2,966 calls for service. Out of those, we had 21 cardiac arrests. Only 3 survived, and that's a 14% survival rate. Now you might say that that's not a great survival rate, but when you compare that to the national average of just over 8%, you're almost double the percentage chance of having a successful outcome here in Southbridge versus anywhere else. So I think those efforts are to be commended. Also this year we were able to bring a new life into the world here in Southbridge, so we'll recognize that here this evening. And all of these miracles happen due to the true commitment of my staff to continue their education with the latest technology and trends, and the ongoing training to keep their skills sharp. We also continue to strive to improve our operations and provide the best, highest level of service possible. But also the town council, town manager, and the citizens of our community have also believed in and supported our department whenever asked. So for that, we are truly grateful. So we'll start with Group 3. On August 9th, 2012, members of Group 3 responded to a request for a male who had passed out. On arrival, they found bystanders performing CPR on a male patient. The crew continued CPR along with assistance from our police department. A request for additional staff was made, and the lieutenant inspector and myself responded to assist. The patient was placed on oxygen, the cardiac monitor applied, and the patient was found to be in VFib arrest. The patient was shocked a total of 4 times and was given medications through an IV to stabilize his heart. After the 4th shock, the patient's heart began beating on its own, and he also started to breathe on his own. The patient's heart was checked again on the monitor, and it was determined he was having a heart attack. The patient was given additional medications to calm him, and an airway was used to assist in his breathing efforts. He was brought to Harrington Hospital to be stabilized, then quickly transferred to UMass for cardiac catheterization. Only 4 days after this event, the patient, Mr. James Ray Hall, was able to walk out of UMass and attend his son's wedding. So with that, I'd like to recognize the members of Group 3 that were on that response. Lieutenant Cantara, Firefighter EMT Glenn McDonald, Firefighter Paramedic Michael Gagne, Firefighter Paramedic Thomas Edwards, and Lieutenant Stephen Lavoie. Is Mr. Rahal here? Did he make it? Yes. Do you want to say a few words? Okay, our next one recognizes some members of Group 1. On August 27th, 2012, the members of Group 1 were called to respond for a woman in labor. On arrival, they were met by a male party who stated his wife is in labor upstairs. They had just returned from Memorial Hospital in Worcester for a labor check. They found the mother on the floor, and after a quick assessment, it was clear delivery was imminent. The mother asked if she was going to deliver the baby on the floor, and the crew responded with a resounding yes. After a short time and several pushes, a beautiful baby girl was delivered. The crew cut the cord, wrapped the baby up, and brought her out to the ambulance for additional treatment and care, but the baby girl was perfect. The crew then assisted the mother out to the ambulance, where she was reunited with her daughter, Celia Torres. They were all brought to Harrington Hospital, and they were discharged a few days later. So recognizing members on Group 1, Lieutenant John Larichelle, Firefighter EMTI Robert Wareka, and Firefighter Paramedic Rob Barton. And I believe Celia Torres is here this evening. Maybe we could bring her out so everybody on TV can get a chance to see her. Would you like to say a few words? Certainly.
Wow, miracles. I just want to say thank you so much. We actually didn't think we were going to deliver her that day. We were sent home, and she came really, really quickly, and it was a really, really scary thing. And the EMT that walked in was very calm and calmed me down enough to handle business and do what we had to do. I think it went smoother than it probably would have went in the hospital. So we're just really grateful that she's healthy and well, and we owe it all to them. Thank you.
The next one, again, members of Group 3, responded for a male patient having chest pain. The patient was assessed and was complaining of 8/10 chest pain that started about 10 minutes prior to their arrival. Vitals were taken, he was placed on oxygen, the cardiac monitor, and his rhythm was determined. It was found the patient was having multiple heart attacks in several different areas of his heart. The crew quickly put the patient on the stretcher, started an IV, gave him some medications, and started transport to UMass Medical Center for the cardiac catheterization lab. While en route, the patient went into cardiac arrest on Route 169. Additional assistance was called from the Charlton Fire Department since we only had 2 people on the truck. Patient was shocked 3 times and CPR was given. He was given several medications for his heart, which then had stopped. The crews continued CPR and returned to Southbridge to go to Harrington Hospital. During the trip back, they noticed his heart start beating on his own, and after briefly stopping at Harrington Hospital, they were quickly redirected to UMass to continue for the cardiac catheterization. During the transport back to UMass, the patient remained stable and was breathing on his own. The patient received his cardiac catheterization, and Felix Quinones was later discharged home with no problems. So for the members of Group 3 that were on that incident, firefighter EMT Glenn McDonald, firefighter paramedic Michael Gagne, and from Charlton Fire, firefighter paramedic Joe Overly. The other firefighter from Charlton could not make it this evening, but that was Roger Meskis. I don't know if Mr. Quinones made it here this evening. I don't see him. He is here. Okay. Does he want to say anything this evening?
God bless everybody. First, thank you, Jesus, for saving my life. Thank you. Second, thank you, Fire Department, for fighting for my life. Congratulations. Good job.
I just want to say, you guys are great. You put all your love, all your passion, your effort to work what you learn. When you make a commitment, you really mean it. You are wonderful. You fight for my husband's life. He was gone. But I was there and I saw exactly what happened. And I want to congratulate the fire department of Southbridge because they have a great team. Thank you.
And the last one involves members of Group 2. On October 15th, 2012, members of Group 2, along with Lieutenant Lavoie and myself, were dispatched for a female with difficulty breathing. On arrival, they found the patient laying in bed, barely breathing. As treatment was progressing, the patient stopped breathing. She was immediately given oxygen, placed on the monitor. An endotracheal tube was inserted to assist her with breathing, and after a few moments, the patient began to awake. The tube was removed, and she was placed on our CPAP machine to continue assisting with her breathing. The patient was given several medications for her breathing during the transport, and she was closely monitored. She was brought to Harrington Hospital and admitted, and then a few days later, Elaine Escobar was later discharged and is doing very well today. I don't believe she made it today, but the members of Group 2 who responded to this: firefighter paramedic Gary Peck, firefighter EMT intermediate Richard Phillips, firefighter EMT intermediate Christopher Wilson, firefighter paramedic Kelly Manning, and Lieutenant Stephen Lavoie. Now, for all of our miracle people, I got one special gift for all of you. Obviously, we can't be with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I got each one of you your own firefighter's guardian angel pin. And on the card it reads, "Angels are sent down from above. Sometimes these angels come in the form of firefighters." So each one of you will get one of these to remember us, and hopefully your life will continue for a long, long time. Just a couple other quick things that you may not know about. We were recently successful in obtaining a federal grant from the Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program. We received over $192,000. That grant program we wrote for was myself, Lieutenant Hulick, and firefighter James Philbrook helped me out with that. We'll be getting some much-needed radio equipment, some assistance with our air pack funding, and then training, which is two key things that we need. One is for a RIT training program, and the other is a driver-operator training program mimicking the NFPA 1002 standard, which I don't know of too many departments around that are meeting that, so we're certainly going to be one of the very few. So I wish to say thank you to those guys that helped me out with that. And the other thing is our EMS service will be recognized by Central Mass EMS. I believe it's May 4th by all of Worcester County encompasses Central Mass EMS, and we're being recognized for Service of the Year. So again, congratulations to all of my guys, because they're the ones that certainly do this every single day. So again, thank you.
Congratulations to all of you, and I'm so happy that all of you made it, and your baby is beautiful. Nice job. Next is our police chief, Chief Charette.
Good evening, everybody. Before I go any further, congratulations to all this evening. It's just amazing to hear those stories and see the great successes that the fire service has had. With that in mind, what the council chairwoman alluded to earlier, the emergency service personnel running towards the bad things has been unfortunately gravely demonstrated over the last few weeks. But this happens all over, and I just wanted to take a moment this evening to publicly thank the fire service again for something else that, people just don't see. About a month ago, on March 24th, about 3 a.m., the police department received a call. There was a minor disturbance down the Thomas Street area. Well, the officers go down, and very often for those folks who don't know, there's only 2 or maybe 3 police officers on duty at that time of the morning. They go down, and there's a pretty big disturbance. There's probably 50 or so people in the street. Things are kind of going bad. They start assessing that. They start dealing with the situation. And very quickly, things go from bad to worse. While they're in the midst of trying to deal with this, another disturbance breaks out just next door, a couple of houses down. They start dealing with that. Very quickly, that spills outside, friends arrive, and now you have 150 plus people in the street. I can tell you from years of experience, I don't care if you're wearing a gun or whatever tools you have with you, that is a very, very scary deal. They call for assistance. We call typically the state police, which are right in Southbridge, but they only have 2 troopers who cover an area all the way from Munson all the way to the other side of Webster. We call Southbridge Police also. We call Charlton Police also. This is one of those times in life where those few seconds that it takes to go a half a dozen miles seems like an eternity. Well, in the midst of all this, mace comes out. That has no effect. 4 people are arrested. They're in cars trying to kick windows out. If you can picture this, and now you're still with just a couple of people there, the next thing you know, tasers come out, and nobody's afraid of that anymore, and things are really going south. Well, out of the blue, without being asked, all of a sudden coming around the corner, and I can only say, relayed to me from the other offices, it looked like something out of a bit of a Star Wars movie, comes this great big red truck with lights flashing. Now, nobody called the fire service. They were out. They happened to be listening. Here comes the fire truck, lights and siren going. And without question, the arrival of that fire truck with Lieutenant Ulick, firefighters Peretti and Matthew, literally the crowd parted. They positioned themselves near our cruisers where we had detained some folks. And that may sound like a fairly minor thing, but I can tell you in a disturbance like this, what happens very often is friends of the folks who are in the back of the police car getting a free ride start letting them out. Things get really violent. A lot of people get hurt. And our people, other people, police officers responding. So I thank the council this evening and giving me a moment to publicly thank the fire service. Never in this community. I've always been so proud through Chief Chesler, through Chief Laporte, now with Chief DeFranzo. We have a fantastic working relationship on both sides, police, fire. And I know it's hard to imagine, but that doesn't exist in all communities. I can tell you there's a few communities not too far away where they don't even talk to each other. And we've never understood that. So my sincere, heartfelt thanks to all of the fire service. These things happen quite often, and they are definitely there to save us, and I hope in some way we're there to help them along. So thank you for giving us a moment, and I just want to be sure the public out there realizes that it's not always guns and fire and water and all that sort of thing. There's a lot of good people out there watching and helping through the community. So thank you to all of you, and thank you to the council this evening.
Okay. Going to move on to the last of our presentations this evening. John Faris from Casella.
Thank you, Council, for having me up here. Casella would like to donate $15,000 a year to a newly formed scholarship fund that the town has set up, and we'll do that annually every year in the month of May.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Mr. Faris. That's wonderful. I'm speechless. Thank you.
Thanks.
I can't. Thank you. Wow. Okay. With that, Agenda item number 8 is Citizens Forum. Do I have any citizens who wish to come forward? Any citizens? Okay.
Thank you. Monique Miana, 20 Maple Street. I just have a question for Mr. Faris. There was quite the noise, and I didn't really hear. You said there was going to be a scholarship that you were going to be funding once a year for the town. I didn't really hear too much about that. If he could just repeat that, if you don't mind, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the town manager could talk a little bit about it. I think somebody in town actually left the town some money for a scholarship one time, and Casella would like to contribute to that every year in the amount of $15,000.
Yeah, actually, I will take an opportunity to kind of put this a little bit into context. I started as town manager in about 2008, and we had a scholarship committee that had received funding through various town sources. Those funds were actually exhausted in 2009, and we had a former teacher who donated. She passed away and left a living will to the town. We were able to secure that the funds, $91,000. So we figured that it was now time to kind of reactivate the scholarship committee. So I believe at the last council meeting there was 2 additional appointments to the scholarship committee that was made. One was for that former teacher's not partner but fellow coworker. So she went on to the committee to assist, and then we also put Anna Smith on. Anna Smith is our landfill monitor. She's also a former employee of DEP. And during the time in which I've been working with Casella, my time here, actually was a resident that raised to my attention that there was a commitment made by Casella that they would donate $15,000 a year in the form of a scholarship. So it kind of got things going when we realized that the school teacher had donated it and we would have money to recommence the efforts of the scholarship committee. So I approached Mr. Faris and said, the timing is probably right to, get going and see if they would be willing to donate that $15,000 per their commitment previously. And Mr. Faris, without really hesitation, agreed to do that. He had to talk to higher-ups at Casella. We all have higher-ups. But he has, in just conversations, has agreed to pay the $15,000 per year. So that will give us more revenue to help the kids in the Southbridge school system and the residents of Southbridge to be able to attain that college through an additional scholarship. We do need to kind of work out the details. I think we were thinking of something maybe in the environmental sciences or something in recycling to kind of match up to the landfill operation and the recycling efforts that the community has strived to accomplish.
Mr. Faris, I'd just like to say, as a member of the town council and a citizen of the town who believes very strongly in education, thank you very much for your company's generous donation. Thank you so very much. Greatly appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Wow. Okay. Any other citizens wishing to come forward?
Rossiel Fernandez, 56 Everett Street. I wanted to come here today just a couple of reasons. One of them is a personal reason. I'm on the board of directors of the Art Center in Southbridge. We represent 25 communities, and we had a previous event with Bay Path, very successful. It was an excellent program, and I wanted to thank several of the counselors that showed up in support. I know that oftentimes we're sort of at odds with each other's concepts and thoughts, but certainly art and culture is something that benefits the community, and Councilor Nicola, Councilor Clemens, Councilor Peliquin, and I don't remember if anybody else was there, but thank you very much for supporting the arts. It's a wonderful thing in town. It's an excellent resource. I know that the town rated higher than it probably would have because of the Art Center and the services it provides. So thank you very much, and hopefully we'll have a chance to do more things like that in the future. And I also wanted, actually didn't realize that the firefighters were going to be here tonight. I have always had a sense of pride since moving to Southbridge for the Southbridge Fire Department. It's one of the things in this town that really, it's something that shines, and it's always been something that this town can put its foot forward and be very proud of. Especially recently with the new the new fire chief. He certainly has elevated the position even more, and the quality of our department. The second thing is, I was at the master plan. It was one of the working sessions, and someone mentioned that there are $50,000. I don't know if it's true, but there are $50,000 available in some tree planting fund for funds for tornado damage. And so I had a couple of questions there. One is, and the question was, we're trying to find out what to do with the $50,000. Like I said, I don't know if it's true or not, or if there's some miscommunication there. But my question is, if there's $50,000 in there for landscaping or tree planting for tornado relief, why are we looking for something to do with it when there's a whole neighborhood that's still devastated and still trying to kind of dig itself out? These people are struggling. Their properties have been reassessed for construction that they never asked for, construction that their properties have been reassessed, so their taxes have gone up. It's kind of a kick in the face after suffering so much damage and devastation in their lives. The least we could do is redirect some of these funds that apparently we don't know what to do with to plant a couple of trees there. Maybe some streetscaping to make that neighborhood a little less tragic looking would be nice. Like I said, I don't know if it's true. Maybe tonight the town manager or somebody can kind of convey to the folks what this $50,000 is and why we're not using it for actual people who suffer tornado damage. So I guess that's just a couple of things there. Looking forward to maybe a little bit of discussion later for the landfill extension agreement or whatever it is that's coming up. Thank you.
Mr. Hernandez, we would like to answer you.
We've had that question come up in regards to the grant, and I know I've answered it once, but I recognize not everyone watches. The town did put in for 2 grants. One was for drainage, and that's underway. In terms of that was $288,000. The second one was a $50,000 tree planting grant. What the town had in that grant was, it was exactly as you said, for tornado area. Every single home that was impacted in a tornado received a letter asking them what kind of trees they would like. So we did order the trees that were appropriate obviously for the climate. Everyone that wanted a tree was provided a tree, to my knowledge. We sent individual letters. Then there was additional funds that there was quite honestly not enough requests to honor all the money that we had. As a secondary use of that grant funds, they said you could put in public shade trees throughout the community. So what we did was exactly that. We first offered it to everybody in the tornado area. Many were planted. And then there was some excess money that was left over that we then are in the process of planting in public shade trees throughout the community. So that was the process of the grant. They knew that the amount of money for the trees that would be requested probably was going to be too much, so they gave us the opportunity to use public shade trees too.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I don't know if you heard me earlier when I was discussing the minutes of the Department of Public Works Subcommittee. We have a very large project coming up on Charlton Street, almost $500,000 worth of drainage and road work going up there for trying to fix what the tornado caused. So there's a lot of work coming up in that area. Okay? Okay. Councilor Clements, sorry. You don't even look like Councilor Regis, sorry.
Thank you. I just wanted to add, if I may, there were restrictions put on some of that money too, Mr. Fernandez, in terms of where the trees had to be placed near the road, and there were numerous restrictions on that $50,000. We couldn't just say put a tree in your backyard or get some brush or some bushes or flowers. There are a lot of restrictions on the $50,000. So I'm just adding that in there because Mr. Clark didn't mention that. So sometimes you get the money, but they have so many strings attached that it's Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not as nice as it seems.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other? Okay.
Kevin Buxton, 255 Elm Street. It's been a while since I've been before the council, and there's a couple items that I think need to be clarified. The first thing is the lawn and leaf pickup for curbside. Initially, I thought it started on April. Then when I didn't receive my lawn and leaf material picked up, I called the Board of Health. Then I was informed it started April 22nd, and the advertisement on the recycling cans around town say April and May. If there is a definite time being laid out, 2 months, April and May, if it is a situation where they didn't start pickup till April 22nd, I'd like to see if we're going to go till an equivalent time.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the timeline. I'll have to check. I don't know the timeline off the top of my head.
That's fine. I'd just like to get it clarified, because I know people who don't have the transportation ability of getting this material to the DPW facility, which I have used for some material in the past, but curbside is there as a benefit, and I think residents appreciate it, and we'd like to make sure that we have the opportunity to use it.
Excuse me for 1 second. Once we find out when it is, could we please make sure it goes up on the
We'll put it on cable.
on the cable? Thank you. Okay.
All right. Secondly, I don't speak for the bylaw review, but as a citizen, the bylaw review is at this point on Chapter 10, which is the chapter concerning with mandatory recycling, curbside pickup and such. It's been a controversial issue, to say the least, and I'd just like to encourage any councilors interested or citizens interested. Tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, we're scheduled to meet with Mr. Moran, the Public Health Director, to go over Chapter 10. And I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buxton. Anybody else wish to come forward?
Paul Zotos, 312 Main Street, Southbridge, Massachusetts. How's everybody doing? Since we're talking about trees, I've had a little pet peeve for many years. Every day I see a truck or two leave town, all with these gigantic trees in them, stripped of all their limbs and bark and everything. And I've been seeing them for the last couple of years. I don't really know where they're coming from. I don't really know why and where's all that stuff, and where they're being cut. And I would like, maybe you guys could set up a presentation so we could see who's cutting those trees and why and where, and are we getting money for the trees, and is it worth it? I know that Worcester is planting trees. They got that beetle problem. They're planting trees, and I think they've planted more trees. I mean, we've cut more trees than Worcester has planted in the last 2 years. They're trying to save their oxygen and improve their city, and we're cutting trees. And I'd like to have a presentation to see how much we're making. Is it worth it? Is it cost effective? Are we losing trees? Is the forest a mess? That's what Paul Zotos would like to know. Last time it was brooks, tonight it's trees. Good luck.
Mr. Zotos, I don't think there are trees. They're coming down Elm Street.
That's what I don't know.
They're coming down Elm Street. I think they're coming from Connecticut.
Connecticut?
Yeah.
Are we
They're not
doing
our
any
trees.
cutting in any
They're
of
not
our...
our trees, no.
Yeah, no, we don't currently have a active forestry plan going, with vendors. I do believe, and this goes back a ways, that there was I believe there's a company down in Connecticut that builds or makes the utility poles.
Yeah.
So I believe you may be seeing some of those
Weren't we cutting on the watershed or town land a year or two ago?
About 2 years ago.
So that has stopped.
Yeah, that's stopped.
So that's why I wanted to clear. It was hard to tell whether that was still going on.
Yeah, no.
Or
That
not.
work's long been done.
So that was 2 years ago, but the trees still seem to be coming by.
But not from
Not
Southbridge.
from there. So that's what I want to make, so we are not cutting any trees on town property?
No.
Okay, beautiful, then I'm happy.
Okay. Yes, Counselor.
Relating to Mr. Zotos' question, I think you should be able to hear me in a minute.
There you go.
Hello? Okay. I remember seeing a lot of those tree trucks myself, and I think I remember it was something I had actually asked about a couple of years ago because I had spoken with somebody at UMass Extension about potential conservation restrictions on our watershed lands. And from what I understood at that point was that we couldn't do it because there was a contract with an operator at that point. But if we don't have one currently, could conservation restrictions on that land be something we could look at in the future? I believe there was actually somebody from the state here a couple of months ago to talk about the program that they offered, and I think that it would be a really good asset to the town to take advantage of that, to protect our watershed.
Yeah, I just, number one, we don't have any building in our watershed. The watershed is owned by the town of Southbridge, and that is something that we preserve because that is a vital resource. However, there were too many trees that were close to one of the dams, was actually undermining the dam itself.
Oh, yeah.
So there was tree cutting that had to be done to protect some of the infrastructure. The previous town manager had a more aggressive policy to cutting trees, one that I don't necessarily share. So we have not done a real aggressive forestry program in the time that I've been here. But sometimes forestry management does facilitate the need to take trees out to help the forest.
Yes, this is actually something that most people don't know about conservation restrictions. It's still possible to go in and harvest trees for the health of the forest and get some money out of the land as long as you maintain it sustainably so it still stays forest land. So you can still go down and cut trees even though it has a conservation restriction on it. So I think this would be a good avenue for the town to look at in the future. So thank you.
Anybody else wish to come forward?
Hello again. Dan Butler, 35 Brookside Road. There we go. I just had a question. One of the agenda items coming up tonight, number 10. Are we going to have a chance afterwards to say anything, or can I speak about it now, or?
Number 10.
I just.
The portion of the property on Commercial Drive? Go ahead, Mr. Butler.
Well, I just had some. I was trying to figure this out. I mean, from what I've heard, it was something to do with giving Casella some more property for more expansion of landfill. My problem is we've.
No.
Do you want me to wait?
It's really. I know.
I'm just basically trying to clarify it before it comes to the agenda item, and then we can't speak on it, because if it
Well-
is something, I just had a couple of concerns I'd like to voice.
This is agenda item, we're in agenda item
I know
number
we're in
8
eight
at this
now.
point.
My question
If you're
was-
willing, if it's specific to this agenda item, then, I mean, I've got
Would
to
you want me to
vote
come back
before
up?
it comes, yeah, you'd have to come back up.
Before we vote on
Yeah.
it? Okay, that's all I
Okay.
was asking. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? I'm losing my pen.
Although this is John Pulaski, 91 Old Woodstock Road in Southbridge. Although this is landfill related, it's not specifically related to the agenda item tonight. And what it is, and I didn't catch this until I saw it on, actually it was on Sturbridge Cable Access. But, and I realize the town manager has a lot of numbers that go before him. No one can be expected to memorize all the numbers related to the landfill. But he mentioned that it's site assigned for 157 acres. And it concerns me. So I did a little research. I looked up the application in which the landfill operator, the site assignment application. And in an advertisement published by the town or the Board of Health on January 3rd, 4th, 7th, 8th, and 9th of 2008, it says specifically that, this is in the site assignment public notice, that it's a site assigned for 82 acres, only 32 of which are for disposal purposes. So that's all that's site assigned up there. And that, because as I recall from the DEP, they said you can't even increase the size, not even the size of a postage stamp, of the area up there without a major site assignment. We had a minor site assignment. I don't believe a major site assignment was held since. So I just, for y'all just to understand, you know, because you're going to have things coming before you, only 32 acres are site assigned for disposal, specifically 50. I think that's a processing facility. And there's something else. At the end of that night, I asked what the safe levels were for chromium, lead, vinyl chloride, and arsenic. And the gentleman from Ty and Bond responded with the water limits. But if you check with the Centers for Disease Control, you'll discover, as I did, that those limits are not what's considered safe. Those limits are sort of the compromise that were made. But in fact, like for example, you could have asked the American Medical Association in the mid-50s about cigarettes, and the president of the American Medical Association said cigarettes are safe with filters. So, I mean, the science changes over the years. For example, chromium numbers have, the danger level has increased significantly in the past few years. But I wanted those numbers to be clear, because I know there's negotiations coming up and the like, and I don't want us to be tricked out of, you know, or tricked into thinking there's, not that anyone would intentionally try to trick us, but that we do only have 32 acres that are site assigned for disposal purposes. Thank you.
I have a question for Mr. Pulaski.
Okay.
What is the date of the site assigned public notice you're referring to?
It was published in the Southbridge News by the town of Southbridge on January 3rd, 4th, 7th, 8th, and 9th of 2008. And it was also on the application, those numbers.
Thank you.
For the minor site assignment. Thank you.
Just, Madam Chair, I don't believe those numbers are accurate. We do have Attorney Scott that will speak later, and maybe Attorney Scott will have a better recollection than I in terms of the amount of acreage involved. So we may be able to respond to that at a later point.
I happen to have a copy of it, Mr. Town Manager, if you'd like to see it.
Madam Chair, this thing's been litigated out. We have a definitive answer, and to take a posting, which is part of one process at one point of time, I don't believe is an accurate reflection of the reality of the situation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
There's been no litigation on the acreage.
Okay. Thank you. Any other citizens wishing to come forward during Citizens Forum? Okay, I'm moving on. Agenda item number 9. Vote to refer the revised marijuana bylaw to a subsequent council meeting per the changes suggested by the town attorney.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Mr. Clark, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We did receive, this has been around a little bit, and there was a request that we have the town attorney look at it. The town attorney has, in whole, has indicated that he believes that it's appropriate. However, he has requested that the phrase and/or unable to provide identification, in his opinion, is legally problematic. So he is requesting that that be removed, and that the process be that the 3 readings recommence, and to have the council start the process in terms of the council approval of this for the additional 3 readings. So I did provide in the package his write-up in regards to that, and I guess I would like to, with the council's indulgence, we'll put it back on for the next council meeting to recommence the process with the removal of that language, if appropriate.
Okay. I have one thing to add. He discusses at the end of this memo some of the procedural issues, and he felt that it would be the safest way to cover all of our bases to have an additional 3 readings, but he also said that the charter is somewhat forgiving in this sense, and I would feel comfortable if we'd had just a 3rd reading, if you'd want to get that out there quickly. I know that there was a sense of
Well, that will depend on how
urgency.
many people show up for the next meeting, and then I'll determine whether
Okay.
it's the 1st or the 3rd reading, okay? In terms of council vote, I think everybody should have an opportunity to see the revised bylaw before we
I agree.
approve it.
I just, in terms of the agenda, I think you'd need to specify before the actual meeting whether it's the 3rd reading in terms of open meeting law stuff.
again, I want everybody to have an opportunity. So much has been made of this particular little piece that I want everybody to get a chance to look at it.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And I want to thank you for your work on this.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Madam
Do
Chair.
I have anybody else? Mr. Fernandez?
Just a comment in general. I wasn't here for those discussions, but I just wanted to kind of express my. I was saying how I'm very proud of the fire department here. Law enforcement, it's a mixed bag for me. With this marijuana bylaw, it seems like we always seem to focus our resources into things that are not necessarily a problem. We're in a town now that a 150-person potential riot can occur, and yet we're focusing on medicinal marijuana, my grandmother with cancer smoking in the park. And that's just a general tone that's being set in this town of criminalizing things that are not an issue and not focusing on things that are serious. There are 30-something heroin crack houses here. Let's put some energy into those. That seems to be a real problem. Thank you.
While I do agree with you, we have to address a brand-new item that's been voted on by the state. And to just leave it out there and do nothing with it is not responsible. Nobody is putting this in the same category as somebody shooting heroin or snorting coke. But something has to be done with it, and that's what it's just order. That's all it is. So, with that said, if there's nobody else who wishes to comment on this, can I have a roll call, please?
Councilor Marcucci?
Yes.
Councilor Moriarty?
Yes.
Councilor Nicola?
Yes.
Councilor Peliquin?
Yes.
Councilor Vandal?
Yes.
Councilor Clements? Yes. Councilor Langevin?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Agenda item number 10, vote to authorize the town manager and town attorney to sell a portion of the town property along Commercial Drive in accordance with the RFP for the triangle and roadway parcels necessary in order to continue the development of its industrial park and to complete any other closing documents necessary.
Second.
Okay. Discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to table this and agenda item 11 as well, especially if we're going to be hearing a presentation about it tonight. I feel like I've gotten some information about this. I feel like I could do to have a lot more. I'm still doing research. Would like a lot more public input on this. Many of the people in this town won't know that we voted to take this action as a body until after they've watched it on TV, so they won't have had an opportunity to weigh in. And I think that given that this is such a controversial issue in the community, I personally would feel a lot more comfortable if I could hear from more of the people in the community who feel that they're affected by it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I agree with that, but unless more people in the community understand what it's about, I won't be entertaining people coming up here with notions that are not what this is.
Right.
So it's difficult without a presentation for people to actually understand what this is.
I would like to see a presentation, but I would not feel comfortable voting this evening, just to clarify.
Okay, there's a motion on the table. Yes.
I want to second that, but I want to second it because it only appeared in the Southbridge News tonight, and people don't have no knowledge of it. Let it be out there for a week or two. I'd say put it on have a presentation, put it on at the next meeting. It's nothing to rush about, all right? I don't need nothing thrown down my throat. And as a matter of fact, to be honest, I didn't even read this. I got it Thursday, and I didn't even read this. Kind of thick, all right? We had a lot of...
So when will you be reading it, Counselor?
Probably this week.
Okay. Well, I'm going to, we have a motion to table this agenda item and a second. Counselor Clements?
If we table it at this very moment, then technically the presentation cannot be made. A motion should have waited until we at least got to the discussion point and what we wanted to do. We can open up the discussion on it, let the presentation, and then if somebody feels strongly about tabling something, they have the right to offer that up. I mean, they still have it now, obviously. So it's either they withdraw or we vote on it now. We can vote no, continue, they can, whatever.
I'm willing to withdraw my motion until after the presentation is concluded, if that makes things easier for everyone.
Okay. Are you taking your second off the table?
Well, for me, it's gone.
I didn't hear a thing that she said.
I was saying, if we table it at this very second, we can't hear the presentation. So why don't we hear the presentation, and if you still want to table it...
Oh, I want the people out in the community to know what's going
Okay,
on.
then-
And they didn't have the opportunity to see what was going on, because it only appeared in the Southbridge News this evening, first time.
Right, I understand. That's why I'm suggesting you remove your motion and let him do the presentation. If you still feel like you want to table it, do it after that, before we vote.
I'll remove my second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Then at this time, I'm going to ask Attorney Scott to come forward. And did you want to put something in there, too?
Actually, if I could, I'd like to do a little bit of an overview, and then we did this as a tag team the other night. I thought we spent about almost 2 hours going through subcommittee in fairly good detail. Certainly the press covered it. In terms of the press getting the stories out, I know we provided them with the information literally the next day. So the information is and has been out there and available. This is more about the development of the industrial park and how we continue that development of the industrial park than it is about the landfill operation itself. So I do think that we should kind of put things into context for what this is and what this isn't. In terms of some of my comments this evening, I will be, just for simplicity's sake, kind of doing a little bit of overview in regards to both 10 and 11, and then certainly will answer any questions in regards to those, and we can do those in sequential order. In the materials that was distributed, if you go to Exhibit C, which is, it says appraisal, there's a map that I will be referring to. I think just to put this into context for the general public, we do have an industrial park that we have been attempting to develop. In the development of that, we contracted with a group, actually Mass Development paid for the services of Fuss & O'Neill to come out and look at a parcel, approximately 40 acres of town land. The town has already subdivided or made some of those parcels available for development. 10 acres of that 40 acres has already been made available. This council has been intimately familiar with the Fuss & O'Neill plan that has been circulating for at least 2 years. And with that plan, we have been implementing elements of that plan. The 10 acres that we have sold off about 4 1/4 acres to a developer, and we are in the process of having a industrial business locate to Southbridge from Oxford. That was done also by RFP. The next stage in that is that in that 40 acres, there's about 30 acres that is still usable. Really, this is a question of access. What the Fuss & O'Neill folks had recommended, as well as the previous DPW director, is the better way to get to that parcel is actually to construct what is called H-foot road extension. H-foot road is the road that runs to the east of the landfill and comes down and then connects into Barefoot Road. The concept behind this plan is to extend H-foot and connect it into Commercial Drive. Hopefully most folks have that open. In terms of trying to develop the industrial park and H-foot road extension, approximately 2/3 of the road identified as parcel A1, or the road that would be constructed, is actually on wood recycling property, which is really under the control and jurisdiction of SRD and ultimately Casella. So in order to access it, Casella would have to construct a road on their property. In order to connect H-foot road extension to Commercial Drive, the town would have to sell off a parcel identified as parcel A3 in this diagram to actually be able to connect in. So the tip of this triangle that you see, parcels A3 and A2, are actually part of that 40-acre development site that the town has been actively attempting to develop. What we've done here is we have been made aware that Casella has an interest in developing the road. If we were to sell off parcel A3 to develop the road, that would allow us an easier access point to the 30 acres in which to continue to develop the park. What that also does is that leaves a little over 1 acre parcel that is off by itself, and it's identified on the map. I call it a triangle piece because it's quite honestly a triangle. It's parcel A2. That triangle piece would be sold off through the RFP that you have in front of you this evening. That RFP is very, very similar to the RFPs that we have done for all the town properties that have been sold off or attempted to be sold off over the last couple years that we have been here. So the model that is being used is a model that has been used consistently. Part of the reason for this, too, is not just, obviously, for us, it's a benefit to develop the industrial park, but one of the things that prompted this was, as identified on the top section of this, is Barefoot Road to the northern boundary. This actually, Barefoot Road, is the boundary between the landfill, the active landfill, and the property that is operated by Casella. It is also, for all intents and purposes, acts as a driveway for trucks to be scaled and weighed and then to go up to the landfill. And one of the concerns that we had fairly early on, Jim Moran and myself, was that we have basically 18-wheeler type vehicles going in and out of the landfill from the scales over that section of Barefoot Road, and there are, at times, buses from the town of Charlton that pick up kids that commingle with that. So we first started to look at this, and this has been something that's been in process for some time in terms of trying to work out some of the details and understandings. So in this plan also, we address some of the safety concerns of Barefoot Road, the commingling of trash trucks with the school buses and other pedestrian vehicles that go along that road. As you can see in the plan, they would take the H-foot road extension, in essence go over parcel A1 and A3 and connect into Commercial Drive, which has been obviously newly completed within the last couple of years. So a bus could come down and then go around Commercial Drive to then pick up Barefoot Road. And the Barefoot Road section identified here in parcel A4 would be left for internal traffic. Specifically, Article 10 before you this evening is for the sale of parcel A2 and A3, the triangle and the rectangle piece, with the concept of an approximate value of, I believe it was $166,000 placed on that. And for the town, it would be, in my opinion, the best interest for the town to actually sell that piece and obtain value back. If we were to sell parcel A2 and A3, A3 could be constructed as a roadway, which would then open up and make available at an easier place, in a more developable place, the property to the east of that boundary line. So a lot of what you'll hear this evening, and I will turn it over to Mike to kind of fill in some of that, but just to do an initial overview, the concept here is to sell off town land that's valued at approximately $160,000 to realize, or at least have a potential bidder in the form of Casella that will bring a value to the community of about $300,000, plus give us access to land to be able to continue the development of the industrial park.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the council. Thank you for having me before you tonight. As Chris mentioned, this letter agreement really talks about implementation of the extension agreement. It doesn't change the extension agreement in any way. It's about implementing it and perhaps optimizing the land that is being operated by Casella as well as owned by the town. I think the scope of this letter agreement covers 4 areas. As Chris had mentioned, the alteration of the roadway infrastructure through the landfill and around the landfill. 2, optimizing the value of the landfill as well as the town-owned industrial park. 3, agreement on implementing certain provisions within the extension agreement. And 4, there's one cleanup item that we'll talk about. I'd like to walk through the letter agreement paragraph by paragraph, give you a quick summary. Please feel free to stop me if you have any questions about any of it. So in
Paragraphs 1 and 2, Chris did a great job of explaining what the subject matter of paragraphs 1 and 2 includes. But I'll give you a quick rundown of the component parts.
If we could just have a minute.
Sure.
Sorry.
Item number 11 has
the letter.
Item number 10 is the RFP. Item number 11 is the
Just
the
flip
letter,
that
the
and
common
see.
goals letter.
Okay. Which we got individually at the general government information.
General government actually
Which came out 2 weeks
asked to
ago.
have it in this format.
It was missing some pages for the general government.
I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wasn't there.
It was corrected at that meeting.
It was corrected at the
Attorney
meeting.
Scott sent
Yes,
it
that
out.
was.
We're ready. Go ahead.
So this is a letter that, as Chris had mentioned, we've been working on. It was proposed by Casella initially after some discussions between the town and Casella. I would say it's something that we have been modifying back and forth between the parties, so it reflects, I believe, the intent of both the town as well as Casella, at least from Mr. Clark's standpoint. So paragraphs 1 and 2 deal with the issue of perhaps discontinuing Barefoot Road so that it's no longer a public way running through the middle of a landfill, and for the benefits that he suggested, i.e., number one, public safety of having a public way running through the middle of a landfill, having less transactions between, not pedestrians so much, but residential vehicular traffic and traffic that's going there because of the landfill. And then secondly, some benefits to the town industrial park as well. So in terms of the benefits, one of the things that paragraph 1 calls for is that in order to do this, there's been some time that's been involved for us to negotiate this. If the council was to see fit to discontinue Barefoot Road, Casella would pay $50,000 towards some of the town's costs associated with doing this, and that would be done on the date or shortly thereafter of the vote. The way I see this happening, if the town council again chooses to do this, would be that they would vote to discontinue Barefoot Road, but not have it be effective until after the H-foot road extension has been constructed to the satisfaction of the town. You'll see in paragraph 1 that there are a number of controls that are being placed upon the construction of H-foot road extension. One, it has to be constructed in accordance with the construction standards of the DPW and other town public ways, and the construction standards are an exhibit to the letter agreement. 2, they have to go through all the permitting processes that one would typically go through for a subdivision way. 3, as part of that process, they have to grant rights to both the public in general as well as the town specifically in H-foot road extension. 3, once it's constructed and completed, the town will have the option to request conveyance of H-foot road, including a land that is now occupied and owned by Casella, to the town. That's at the town's option. And that includes all the utilities that we specified to be constructed within H-foot road extension. I think the direct benefits to the town are that we estimated that the value of the construction of H-foot road to be about $200,000. I mentioned the $50,000 payment. The other thing that we had studied, we asked our consultant, Ty and Bond, to take a look and to see what additional area might be made available for additional filling within the site-assigned footprint if H-foot road was no longer a public way. And they estimated that there would be an additional potential revenue from deposition of waste within that area of about $10.7 million. Now, the way I see it, under the extension agreement, that area, or that airspace, if you will, basically a V, that airspace above Barefoot Road was not included within the extension agreement. So I believe that the town can now negotiate what they think is their fair share of the revenue if there is waste that will be deposited within that area. And I've recommended to the town that they do not discontinue Barefoot Road until a satisfactory agreement has been reached with SRDP, Casella, on that allocation of the revenue, if and when it ever happens. It's just inability now to have that land used for that purpose, and if it is used, then the town should be getting its fair share. And I don't believe it should be tied to the current royalty payment because I think it's something separate and distinct,
and it really is, I view, is a joint venture, if you will, between the town and Casella for additional revenue possibilities. The other thing that you'll note in paragraph 1 that Casella has agreed to do is, as part of trying to optimize the industrial park as well as integrate it to some extent with the landfill properties, they've agreed to place and construct a sign for the industrial park as well as landscape the area. I don't have the figures in terms of how much that intrinsic cost is, but Chris, you might know. I don't.
It's $35,000.
Okay. So that really covers paragraphs 1 and 2. Those are the themes. Paragraph 3 is a short paragraph, but simply is talking about a concept of the town and SRDP working together to optimize the landfill and the town's industrial park. I know that Jim and Chris have gone to a landfill site up in New Hampshire and have seen how they've done a master plan for integrating other uses with the landfill. And that's something that may be looked at as part of this provision. But there's other things as well. Just preliminarily, we've been talking about other ways of optimizing the use of the landfill. There's an area in the landfill, and there's a visual that we have, but there's an area in the landfill that could be used for additional filling, again, within the site-assigned area. There could be additional capacity created by mining the old phases 1 and 2, the original phases of the landfill, perhaps mining out the recyclable materials and creating more capacity for additional space. 3, we talked about filling perhaps both sides of Barefoot Road. 4, there is a lot of opportunities for symbiotic relationships between uses in the industrial park and the landfill. DEP, for example, is in the process of banning organic waste. Right now it's from institutions, grocery stores, and the like. There's opportunities, since waste is all coming to the same area, to separate the organics and perhaps have digesters at the industrial park property. So if you can create some synergies with the landfill, perhaps you create a competitive advantage with the town-owned property. That's something that would be explored as part of this process. The other idea was perhaps re-injecting some of the leachate into the landfill to create more methane gas. As you might know, right now under the extension agreement, the town gets 10% of all of electricity generated through the methane gas powered energy conversion. And under the extension agreement, the methane gas can only be used for that purpose. There's a provision later on we'll talk about whereby if there's a possibility for using methane gas for some other purpose, then we'd like to negotiate the town's fair share of that as well. 10% was a number that was negotiated in the past, but it also incorporated a lot of capital costs on the part of Casella, and that's why perhaps the town's share was 10% as opposed to something higher. If it's just use of the methane gas, then perhaps the town's share should be higher than 10%.
I have a question about paragraph 3. In your opinion, as our attorney representing our interests in this deal, I was curious to hear your opinion as to what specifically we're promising to engage in as a result of paragraph 3, and how legally binding is it?
With regard to, I'm sorry.
So paragraph 3 reads, just so I know not everybody has a copy of this letter, the town and SRDP, which is Casella, shall work collaboratively on evaluating means of optimizing the use of site-assigned and non-site-assigned land to maximize opportunities concerning the town's landfill asset, including meeting with a planner for such purpose and development of a master plan.
I think the intent behind this, it was actually myself and the Board of Health Director that went up to a facility in New Hampshire where they operate a landfill. And it was interesting that that facility in New Hampshire just wasn't the landfill. They actually had several components that worked around that and worked in cooperation with the site. Sorry. And what this really envisions is that we should have somebody look at the site specific in the site in the area to see what makes sense. When I started in 2008, we had a company that did powdered injection molding, where they took recycled products, they ground them up, and then they recast them into a buildable material. Now, that would be a company that needs that. It needs recycled goods in order to accomplish that. Having a landfill and having a recycler next door makes some sense. So I think that what they did in the facility up in New Hampshire was they looked at those components, they looked at the area in general, the industrial park, the other areas up there, and said, what makes sense for the town to attempt to recruit and bring into the area, again, in general, that would make sense to help us with the industrial park and to help us with the landfill. So I think this isn't making a commitment that whatever the master plan comes back as, we're going to do. But I think what this allows is for the town to make informed decisions about what the potentials are up at that site, for the town site and the other industrial park sites that the town owns, for what should we be focused on recruiting and what are the other options that are available to us to develop.
Thank you for that explanation. My concern about this is that this is not, this section is not as specific as I would like, and my concern is that as we've seen in legal documents, people have very specific interpretations that are sometimes at odds with each other, and I'm concerned that one party may interpret this paragraph to mean something other than what another party will, and it will provide confusion down the line.
Yeah, I don't think, my view of this provision is simply that it is creating an opportunity to leverage information that Casella has, the town has, and perhaps a consultant has relative to the absolute best use for the resources that are present in this location.
Right.
But there's no specified end, it's just about gathering information so that perhaps the town council in some other setting and hearing can look at what has been presented and have the full panoply of information, or at least as much as we can perhaps generate, so that you have an informed basis for making a decision about the best use of the area.
So would there be input from the public in this process, or would it just be the administration?
Well, I haven't done a master plan for a landfill, so we would have to work with the Casella folks to get the consultant. And then as we have with our own master plan, there were public components to that. I would imagine we could probably do public components. But I think one thing that's important to remember, like in the master plan that we're doing now, those are recommendations for decision makers to make decisions with. Then you take those recommendations and then we have to put that into action, which means we have to get local approvals and state approvals before any of those actions are put into place, depending on what they are. So I think it's a dynamic process and not one that we're going to have all the answers. That's why we need to have a consultant kind of help us to find out what the options, potentially would be.
Right. This has historically, in my experience, been a very controversial issue with the town. I wasn't actively involved in local politics at the time of the first modification to the site assignment hearings, but I know that there are people to this day who are still not on speaking terms in town because of those hearings. So I want to make sure that we can really do our due diligence, excuse me, in making sure that we're providing as much local oversight as possible over this process. Thank you.
To say? Well, earlier I was just going to wait till Mr. Scott had finished his whole presentation. So I'll let you finish and then I'll just... Thank you.
Great. So I want to turn now to paragraph 4. Paragraph 4 is simply addressing an item that is within the extension agreement. Whenever there is excess soils created by the landfill, typically it's because you're excavating for a new cell. There's a consultation process with the town about where those soils should best be located. If they're to be sold to a third party, then the town gets a percentage of the revenue from the sale of those excess materials. In this instance, the town manager thought it was best that the excess materials be used to facilitate the build-out of the infrastructure for the industrial park. And so Casella commissioned a study that was done by Weston and Sampson. And in the Weston and Sampson report, it prioritizes locations within the town, on town-owned property, to help build out town infrastructure to facilitate the industrial park development. And this is just saying that we've reached agreement on that, and those excess soils shall go to these locations in this priority. And if there's anything left over, we have to talk again about where they shall go. Paragraph 5, again, falls into the same category of just implementing an existing provision of the extension agreement. Under the extension agreement, the town was to get paid a lower royalty payment on a per-ton basis until the capacity of the landfill was increased to 405,000 yards per year. That was recently done through the DEP permitting process. And what we've done is just fixed a date in which the royalty payment will increase as a result of that trigger of that provision within the extension agreement.
I have a question about that. I thought it was
Sure.
350. I thought that was by weight, not volume. I thought it was tons per year, not yards.
My apologies, I say
Okay.
yards.
Okay,
I meant
right.
tons. Thank you.
And that's actually one of the questions I had about calculating the additional volume. I was curious as to, but actually I think that's down the line, so I can.
I'd like him to finish his presentation, and then he'll take questions after. I just want him to get
Okay.
through it,
That's
okay? Thank
different
you.
than what he said, but-
Thank you.
Paragraph 6 is that cleanup item I mentioned at the beginning of my remarks. Apparently the Quonset hut located adjacent to the landfill had been used for solid waste activities for a number of years. This is based upon what I've been told. Casella or SRDP has been using it for one of their engines to generate electricity from the landfill gas. And it came to our attention recently that parts of their equipment are on town-owned property, on the airport property. So the intent, as I understand it, is that they're planning on putting another engine there if they could. If they have permission from the town to do so. And then once they have enough landfill gas generated and there's a third engine that has now become feasible, one of the concepts is to move everything up to Casella-owned property, the blue building property, if you will. So this provision just talks about having the town and the airport commission enter in discussions with Casella for the continued use of that area. And then paragraph 7, which I alluded to in my previous statement, that once there is enough landfill gas to make a third engine feasible, that is to be moved up to the blue building. There's also a placeholder there to try to maximize the value of the industrial park. One of the things we explored with Casella and some of their attorneys was how best can we perhaps deliver electricity to some of the would-be occupants of the industrial park and try to create a competitive advantage vis-a-vis other surrounding properties. And if we could sell those would-be occupants or buyers electricity at a more competitive rate, perhaps we should try to do that. And this paragraph talks about that Casella will use their reasonable efforts to be able to sell electricity net of a transmission and distribution charge, which is a fairly significant component of your electricity cost. We're not sure it's possible as of yet, but it's a placeholder to explore whether it is possible. And it may entail perhaps putting, or a discussion about putting one of the engine or all the engines on town-owned property, because under the DTE's regulations, if you cross a public way, then there are limitations on who you can sell electricity to. So we'll have to evaluate that at that point in time, if and when that time comes. And then finally, I mentioned earlier about the use of surplus gas. Right now, it's we've allocated gas to SRDP for generation of electricity, and we have in our extension agreement that we're going to get 10%. It doesn't talk about other uses for the gas. So we thought, again, perhaps some of the would-be occupants of the industrial park might have use for the gas, just raw gas, in which case if there was a market that was created, then we'd like to talk about how the town could share in the revenue from the sale of the gas to some of the would-be occupants of the industrial park. And that covers the letter agreement and the major themes.
Just, Madam Chair, number 9 on that is that the terms of this letter are subject to ratification by the Southbridge Town Council. That was a request that you had made of me about 3 years ago, that anytime we do clarification letters with Casella, that you wanted to make sure the council was fully aware before I executed those. So that's really what the purpose of this evening is to make sure that the council is fully aware and comfortable prior to my execution of it.
Thank you for that. Councilor Clements.
Thank you. I just have a couple of things. First off, I want to point out we are working on agenda item number 10, which is first and foremost for the sale of the triangle piece of property.
Right.
This triangle piece of property, as has been explained by both of you, town manager and yourself, is the area that will then, if all goes well, would allow us to change up Barefoot Road to the new H. Barefoot Road situation. So I just want to point that out. This first part that we're dealing with is strictly about the sale of property, not necessarily all the other components. This letter, this agreement letter comes in number 11. Okay. So then I want to just go back. You stated when we were looking at the first 3 paragraphs, I just want it really clear to the people who are listening so they don't get, there's no misinterpretation. It is my understanding, as you explained it, as has been explained to us here today, that there is no cost to us for this road that you're going to be putting in the agreement. Should things go well, they're going to change. We're going to do a sale of land, and you're going to do the new road extension or new road concept that we are trying to vote on.
I think the best way to summarize this is we're offering town land with a bidder that we know will submit a bid for it. If things go where they are the successful bidder in the competitive process, the town will get a roadway that connects through H-foot road extension, and we will also, in the sale of the triangle piece, it's my understanding that if Casella were to be the successful bidder, they will put up a office park type building as a welcome center or an office for Casella personnel. So from my standpoint, this is the development of the industrial park where we are adding another tenant. If Casella is not the successful bidder for that piece, then obviously someone else would bid to build an office building or some kind of building up there, again with the idea of getting tenants for the industrial park.
And just to follow up, and I think that's probably it. Again, the sale does not preclude us to having to agree to any of the other parts of this agreement letter at this moment. We're number 10, to sell that triangle and agree to what we've proposed here, is about selling the land and continuing on that. Because the second agenda item talks about the agreement letter. I mean, these are all the proposals to it, but the sale is the sale of the land. And it's not any agreement that we're going to add trash, as you mentioned. We have not agreed to add any trash. We have not agreed to allow Casella to fill that empty space with any trash. The sale of the land does not mean we've agreed to any of that. Yeah. We've agreed to look at it, but we've not agreed to participate in additional disposal of trash.
That's correct. Okay. Paragraphs 1 and 2 are integrated into the sale of land. And if they were to be truly separated from this agreement, paragraphs 1 and 2 have to be taken out. All the other provisions stand on their own, but 1 and 2 are integral. Okay. And you're right, in terms of, I mentioned we had Ty and Bond take a look at the airspace, if you will, that could be created. Right now, no one's suggesting it's going to be filled, it's just that it's a possibility. As long as all the proper approvals have been obtained, and there's a desire on the part of the town to do it.
Right. And ultimately, the decision rests within the council, whether it be next year, 2 years, or 5 years down the road, and the faces here change, or they don't. That is the decision-making body in this town. So ultimately, somebody made that decision years ago, and somebody will have to make that decision down the road if that's the way it goes.
That's correct.
Okay. Great. I just really wanted that to be clear. Thank you.
Just to follow up on Councilor Clements' point, I've been confused talking to different people about which board has which authority to do what in terms of the site assignment. I know that there's state law that seems to indicate the sole authority for deciding what falls within and without of the sign assignment is the Board of Health. So in signing or voting to approve the signature of agreements that deal with the site assignment, how does that relate to the Board of Health's decision-making process in terms of what they need to do in terms of the site assignment?
I'd be happy to address that. Excuse me. So the Board of Health authority is granted to it under the solid waste statute, and the Board of Health's role is to protect public health, safety, and the environment. It is to decide upon site assignment applications. So if there was a desire to expand the footprint of the site assigned area, then the Board of Health would then be re-engaged in that process. And the council's role is, you have a contractual relationship with Casella, and as policymakers, you're using your judgment as to what is best for the town.
So we wouldn't directly impact the site assignment?
No, it does. I mean, the Board of Health has independent authority to govern human health, safety, and the environment under the applicable state and local laws.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Anybody else up here? Any questions? Okay, I'll open it up to Kevin Buxton. You have some questions?
There you go, Kevin.
Yes, first, I'd like to start out with a parliamentary inquiry as to when this document becomes a public record so that citizens can review it.
Actually, it's been a public record since it went on to subcommittee. The press asked for it and was provided it. So it's already been a public record.
I made the last half of the subcommittee meeting. Sorry I wasn't able to get there, but it's kind of ironic. I was at a landfill oversight committee meeting. I've yet to review the document. As a concerned citizen since 1996, I've always been concerned about any changes to the landfill or its agreement. So in light of not being able to review this document as of yet, I'll hold my comments till I have a chance to review it and get back to you then. I hope the council has enough votes to do the same and hold off on the vote till citizens have a chance to review it. Thank you very much.
Dan Butler again, 35 Brookside Road. I guess, I don't know, on the agenda papers back there, it didn't have all the information that the attorney was reading, and there was no map or anything, so I was kind of going by what I saw in the paper just before we got here, and I see things about landfill expansions and all this, and we're talking about revenue for the town, and we're going to, maximize this, and we're getting this and that. Nobody's asking any of the people that live around the landfill for the last year. I mean, they expanded the tonnage or something up there. The truck traffic, I mean, I've mentioned this here before, has just increased. I mean, it's all day long, up and down. They got J brakes coming down 169, J brakes coming down the other way. We had a truck broken down the other day blocking 169. I've seen several trucks pull out in front of cars, causing almost accidents. There's trash all up and down the road. I've mentioned before, almost a year ago, I'm picking trash out of the Katy Brook near our house. You watch a Casella truck drive up our road, there's loose trash coming out the back and all. I've up at the top of there, I've saw trash all up in the woods. It's just, my question is, the people that live around here, I mean, I've got another neighbor here tonight trying to sell her house. Nobody even look at the houses around there because the noise has just gotten a lot worse. I mean, are we going to police this if this is expanded? I mean, I don't know quite what I'm trying to say, but when they say the landfill hours of operation are 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. We've got trucks showing up at 5:30 a.m., 6 a.m., waking us up. They sit up at the top of the hill with the brakes. They'll sit up there in a line of trucks. And I'd called the Board of Health several times just trying to ask about this. I never get through to them, so I finally called Casella, complained to them. They told me, no, that doesn't happen. We got neighbors that see it happen, that they, 5:30 in the morning, we're not a truck stop, and the amount of trash that's blowing around our neighborhood lately is frankly disgusting. And they're talking about giving breaks to, companies that are coming in for electricity and all. My home value, other than the tornado, of course, but it continues to go down the bigger the landfill gets. And when I moved in there was no road there. Realtor, this isn't you guys' fault, but no realtor never said to me about a landfill up there and a possible road and expansion, industrial park and all. But it's just, the noise needs to be looked at. The cleanliness, there's got to be something done. I don't know if this could be brought up to maybe the people around, maybe to a vote or something, rather than just. It's just hard for the people up here that don't live there every day. I'm not just spewing off. I've got other neighbors here. It's frustrating.
That's what Pleasant Street has been dealing with for a numerous amount of years that never was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it was voted that that road was going to come down off of 169 quite a few years back. And there's been, I don't know how long you've been in the area, Mr. Butler, but this has been a bone of contention at least since 2005. At least since that time. However, 169 is a highway. Pleasant Street is not. And Pleasant Street has borne the brunt of the landfill for many, many years, since wood recycling came into business. Not to pass the buck, but many, many town managers back.
Okay.
Many, many deals back.
Now,
we got a landfill up there. And what this council has attempted to do, and I'll speak for myself because I've been on the town council since 2005 nonstop, is try to make sense and make the best situation out of something that we legally have no choice other than to do that with. I live on 169 myself. It's not like I'm putting something in a part of town that I'll never have any effect, won't affect me. It affects me. And there are some things that I would like to see tweaked. But the landfill is going to be, Commercial Drive is going to be. This is not trying to expand the landfill. What we're trying to do is get some more bang for our buck in terms of the industrial park. We're not trying to expand the landfill here. I'm trying to allay your fear there in that that is not what this is.
I guess my biggest concern is, I don't know his name, the attorney. He just said that it was the Board of Health that's basically in charge of policing it, basically, from what I understood. I've called Board of Health numerous times about different things. I get a recording constantly.
Have you called the Board of Health or the Health Department? There's a difference.
When I moved here, they gave me a little form that had all the emergency phone numbers on it.
Okay, the Health Department?
I believe it's Moran, I believe the last name.
Okay,
I've
that's
gotten
the
the
Health
recording,
Department.
and so what happened was I started going to Casella's website, and they've got right on there. We've had some days where we've had a smell. It blows our way and it stinks. And I've called. There's an odor control link you can click on. I called one time. The other time I filled it out online. I told them it was a really bad smell right at that point, and I believe it was like probably 4:30 in the afternoon. Within not even a half an hour, about 20 minutes, I got an email back from Casella that said that they had checked my area, checked my complaint, and they rated my smell at a 0 out of 5, meaning there was nothing. I never left my house that whole time. I never saw anybody in my, driving around my area, and I could still smell it when I was checking the email. So I just feel like we're getting blown off. I just want to see it policed a little better. The noise, there shouldn't be trucks coming in at 5:30 in the morning with their J-brakes going, waking everyone's kids up. Maybe the trash. I've mentioned that a few times. It's pretty gross when I'm picking scratch tickets and styrofoam cups out of the river.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying.
I know. Believe me, I understand what you're saying. I understand your frustration.
Yeah. Okay.
And I pledge that I will look into that phone calls are returned and that there's a better job of policing up there. There's no excuse for that not to be happening. And I will have the town manager whose subordinates answer to him. I will have the town manager look into that.
Okay.
And we will get back to you about that.
Okay.
Because this is not the first complaint that I've had regarding unreturned phone calls and that type of response.
Yep,
okay?
fair enough. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Anybody else wish to come up and speak on this issue?
Hi, my name is Erin Cummings Lapriori. I reside at 904 Worcester Street. I unfortunately have the unfortunate privilege of living diagonally across the street from Commercial Drive. Please forgive me, I'm not a public speaker. I'm very shaky at the moment. I do agree with Councilor Peliquin that this information that was presented tonight needs to be further presented to everybody along Worcester Street and that directly lives and is affected by Commercial Drive and the traffic and needs to be presented fully to the town where there is poor representation here of the town tonight. I don't think that presenting tonight you have a fair audience to what lives on Worcester Street or on Charlton Street or who is going to be affected by the sale of another roadway or the possibility of maybe 5, 10, 15 years down the line that, hey, guess what? We're going to put another landfill in. I have a 4.5-year-old, I have a 2.5-year-old. The blasting started for Casella when my daughter was 18 months old. I am tired of the trash. I am tired of the noise. This is the 4th time that I've had my house on the market. This is the 4th time that my house is depreciated, and my son is the 4th generation to live in a house that we can no longer stand because we can't take it. We understand that we live on a main highway. We understand that. We've known that, but then maybe we should have Casella make compensation for the people that are directly affected on 169 and for the youth of our children that I like to take walking down the street, that I take down Charlton Street, but the trash and the smell is so foul, and the noise at 5:30 in the morning wakes my children up. I don't think it's fair. Where are the fines set in place for when the landfill doesn't open at 7 o'clock and there are trucks going down the road at 6 o'clock? Where are the fines for them? I want answers. I want to know what business from Oxford is going to be moving into the industrial park. Another industry that is going to further pollute our town? I'd like to know as a council if we can come up with more creative ways to make revenue for this town besides a dump. Thank you.
Do you want to respond to that, or do you want to just...
I guess I will. It's Midstate Welding is the Oxford company. I believe in the RFP that they submitted that they currently have about 5 employees and they're going to go to 8 employees or 9 employees. They're a welding company. In terms of, the way I look at this in the time that I've been here, we have one of the highest unemployment rates in Massachusetts. We tend to be 2 to 3% above the state average. And, it's always been kind of, I guess, my understanding in the time that I've been here that the community wants to promote jobs, the community wants to give people opportunities to, better themselves. And, in the time that I've been here, the 2 main priorities I've had is certainly work on the education, get the education, squared away, so we did the new school. And then second, create jobs. So we need to give people an opportunity to work. And that industrial park, Madam Chair, you've been here a lot longer than I, but that industrial park and that road has been on the plan since 1986, is what I've been told. So, this isn't a surprise. In terms of the operation of the landfill, a landfill is a dirty business. Certainly we have the Board of Health, we have 3 people that are dedicated to that landfill, and if there are trash issues, if there are issues of trucks going in too early, then we will raise those issues with Casella. I have no problems making sure that we operate the landfill as most effectively as we can. But I think that we have an industrial road, we have industrial land, we have the opportunity to try to benefit this community by creating jobs and creating the opportunity for this community to improve itself. This is a step in that direction. A lot of what's contemplated here is the development of parcels. The only thing that's in the agreement is the possibility by a master plan that at some day, somewhere down the line, a proposal may come forward to make changes to it that will have to go through the regulatory process. So to me, if the town wants to improve and create jobs to try to decrease our unemployment rate, this is a step in that direction. So I don't think there's anything in here that is, really promoting the expansion of the landfill. Certainly a master plan that says what we should do is something that may lead to that discussion. but may lead to is a far cry from actually happening. So, in terms of that, I just wanted to at least articulate, as you said, Madam Chair, and I do tend to listen very carefully when you speak, that the issues related to the operational landfill will be looked at. I've been very upset that we don't get back, our Board of Health does not get back to people. It's been raised to the health director on numerous occasions. We have made some changes, and we will continue to make changes to make sure that we alleviate that issue, and that will be addressed with him in terms of not responding to phone calls. Thank you, Madam Chair.
My name's John Pulaski, 91 Old Woodstock Road. And I may sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, because you folks all know that I was very much against the expansion of the landfill. But something that concerns me, we were made promises, commitments were made. Even tonight, this example, we had a document from the town of Southbridge that said there was a 32-acre footprint for the waste up there, and it seems to be disputed now. As far as hours of operation, we were told there would be no trucks going up there before 7. Those have been changed, or not changed, but they're not taken seriously. People sometimes perhaps confuse the Board of Health and the Health Department, because I've heard the director of the board, the director of the Health Department, frequently referred to by people on this dais as the director of the Board of Health, at least on 4 occasions that I can think of in the last year. We do have an alternative to that landfill. All we need to do is appoint a Board of Health with the backbone to make our landfill tenant go by the site assignment. There are numerous things that aren't being respected on there. They're ignored. From the town's documents, before they had a permit to bring in municipal solid waste from outside of town, I complained ad nauseum before this board, before the health director, about 72,000 tons of recycling residuals that were dumped up there. In my opinion, only my opinion, unlawfully. But they didn't, I'm sure, of those 72,000 tons, which would likely fill this gigantic room, and people out there in TV land that haven't been here, this looks like Noah's Ark upside down to me. This is a big room, 72,000 tons. Not a fine. But if you had 72 ounces of recycling residuals in your trash bag, you could have gotten fined hundreds of dollars. I don't get it. I really don't know who runs this town. That's why I think we should have, with no disrespect to any of you, the time-honored system of government like our neighbors do all around us. Selectmen with town meetings. I don't know what, for years I heard we had a 5-member Board of Health. That's how we got the landfill. 2 last-minute appointees on a 3-member Board of Health. Bingo, 5 members of Board of Health. It passed on a 3-2 vote. Now we got a 3-member Board of Health for over a year. I don't get it. Now, we're going to vote tonight. I don't know why. Before, a lot of people thought, on both sides, that we kind of got the cart before the horse when the council voted first for the agreement, and then the Board of Health approved, yea or nay. I've had members of that Board of Health tell me they voted for it because they felt pressured, because the town already had a so-called legal obligation. Here we go again. We're going to make agreements on, what do you guys call a common goal letter of agreement, common goals. Now, I remember, there's something else too. We're supposed to get an additional fee if we were recycling well in this town, better than other towns coming in there. I understand there was some resistance on paying us that fee. Now, around this time, we're also, do any of you that were on the council at the time remember the most favored nation status, in which we were guaranteed to get the highest rate of any town in the Commonwealth on dumping fees? This is the time to ask for that. so we can actually get money. Now, that's where I may sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. Let's not expand, but I'm saying, if you're going to expand, let's at least get some money on this. From what I've seen, we're not getting more money. In fact, it appears to me we may not even be in the positive with this well-meaning company from Vermont. We borrowed $7 million for the road. Perhaps we've gotten that back, but it doesn't seem like we're getting ahead on this. And I know businesses have left town because of the stench regarding to the putrescious waste. And now we're increasing the putrescious waste. So if I seem annoyed, I'm apologize. I have a toothache. But I wish you folks would be a little more prudent. Give this some time. I'd love to see it on the ballot. I know that's asking for too much because democracy wouldn't work if we wanted this expansion for the people that want the expansion.
Mr. Pulowski,
My
your
5 minutes are
5 minutes
probably
are
up.
Yeah.
So thank you for your time. Like I said, if I seem less than...
Thank you, Mr. Pulowski.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman Nicola.
Monique Manna, 20 Maple Street. Through you, Madam Chair, to the town manager, could you please clarify again the agenda item that we were speaking on and what it's for? It's for the triangular piece, not any landfill extensions. It's just to sell a piece of property, basically. Please
Actually,
clarify that for me.
Sure. Actually, there's 2 items. The subcommittee recommended that we put them in this order, which I concur with. I do believe that they are both part and parcel together, so that the material that has been presented. But the item number 10 specifically deals with the sale of 2 pieces of town property on Commercial Drive, a triangle piece and a rectangle piece, which would be a roadway parcel, which would be necessary to development of the industrial park and to complete any necessary documents to complete that. So the idea behind that is to improve town infrastructure by utilizing resources, basically property that we have available to continue the development of our industrial park. And then the second is the common goals letter of agreement between the town and Casella. I would say, in the time that I've been the manager here, that there's certainly, I don't know how many pages, I think it's like 50 or 60 page lease agreement that the town has. There's a lot of material in there. And in the time that I've been the manager, what I've tried to do is to piece out and try to make sense of what we have and how can we make it work in the best interest of the town of Southbridge. I have said numerous times that my loyalties are simple. It's Southbridge only. So, the reason why Attorney Scott is here is to help me to fulfill the best we can get out of this agreement. But I wasn't here when the agreement was negotiated. I'm coming in with the idea of let's understand the agreement, let's work with Casella to get to the best benefit that we can. Both of these items, in my opinion, move us forward and continue to progress the town forward primarily through the development of the industrial park.
So there's nothing that's going to be voted on tonight to extend any contract or any landfill, nothing?
This is a letter of clarification to an agreement that was signed in 2000, I think it was 2007? 2007. So this is a clarification, which means there's a few things in there that we could interpret, as the comment was made earlier, that could be interpreted different ways. This allows us to take some of those elements, make sure we interpret them to the advantage of the town of Southbridge.
And if there was going to be anything done with the landfill agreement contract, you would give the public plenty of notice in advance on this so they could have their input?
Sure. If there was going to be an amendment, a formal amendment to the landfill extension agreement, which is the legal document that's referred to in 2007, yes, that would go through the public process. It's a lease agreement.
Thank you very much.
Does anybody have anything else that they wish to ask?
Since the previous speaker wanted clarification on the agenda items, so are we going to have an opportunity to speak on the rest on agenda item 11, or according to the town manager, it sounds we're going to talk about everything now?
Both agenda items have been linked. We've discussed both of them through the attorney.
So it looks like our understanding is correct and not the previous speakers.
10 and 11.
So There is a few things. There was a previous speaker here, Mr. Kevin Buxton, who is on the Landfill Oversight Committee. It kind of shows the flaws in this process. He's on the Landside Oversight Committee, and he doesn't even have a copy of this document. It seems that, at a minimum, at least that committee should have a look at this and review this to have some more time. So hopefully, when you start voting on these two agenda items, that you will table it. I urge you to table it so that more people can understand what the context of this document is. The town manager cited, jobs and opportunities, and those are all wonderful things. But, many of us in town have become very cynical. Could the town manager, through you, Madam Chair, could the town manager clarify how many jobs, Southbridge jobs, have been done or have been given since the Casella agreement and the extension agreement have been done? I'm only aware of one, which is the landfill monitor.
By agreement, there's three positions that were required to be funded by Casella: the recycling coordinator position, the landfill spotter, and the landfill monitor. So by agreement, by lease agreement on the lease of the property, there's three positions. I would say in 2008, when I started, I walked the site of what is now Commercial Drive, and I don't know how you generate jobs from scrub brush and really just substandard land to develop. In my professional opinion, the way you develop jobs is you put in the necessary infrastructure to allow jobs to occur and to bring companies in that can then take use of that infrastructure. And in some of actually members of the council went down with me to two locations, both to Taunton and down to New Bedford, and those industrial parks took 30 to 40 years to fully develop. So it is not something that will occur overnight. The fact that we have the opportunity right now, we already have one parcel sold that, as I indicated, I believe it's about 5 jobs coming to town with the expansion to, I believe, 8. And then if we can develop these other sites, obviously the Casella folks are trying to develop the blue building to get the blue building in operation, which will generate jobs. They will also generate jobs by having a information center or office building there. So the effort here is to not wait 30 or 40 years to develop jobs, but to try to make use of that infrastructure and minimizing the taxpayer obligation to building that infrastructure to be able to develop the industrial park in a cost-effective way that doesn't raise taxes. And this proposal basically takes land and converts land into something concrete that will help to develop the industrial park. So I don't know a specific number in terms of that. I think I answered specifically what the lease agreement with Casella generates for the town: 3 jobs.
Okay. I appreciate that answer. It certainly conceptually is sound. My question was more in a practical manner. Are these Southbridge jobs? And I don't believe we know that. And as I said, the only one I know is one that are actually Southbridge jobs. Yes, we should develop, that's a great thing to develop areas so that there are jobs. But as far as I know, there's nothing in the contract. There's nothing that we ever do to ensure that, at least a certain percentage are Southbridge residents. So, it seems like Southbridge residents are always the ones that are carrying the burden, and other groups or companies seem to always reap the benefits. That's more of a editorial. That's not necessarily, take it for what it's worth. The second question is, the town manager cited visiting New Hampshire, a New Hampshire site, as sort of an example of something, of how something could be successful. Through you, Madam Chair, to the town manager, could he let everyone know what site that was in New Hampshire? What facilities he visited?
Yeah, the only reason why I hesitate is 'cause I don't remember the name of the town that was in. I know it's up in New Hampshire. Actually, they have a waste-to-energy facility that provides electricity to the University of New Hampshire. It's actually a BFI, or waste management site. I don't know, I can't remember the name of the town. If you, Jim Moran, the health director, actually arranged the site tour. So
Okay.
Jim was the one that would probably know the location.
Okay, yeah, I think that would be important because there are several sites in New Hampshire that are environmental disaster areas, and it would probably be important to know specifically which ones are the success stories.
Yeah, just to that point, I do wish to say, I went up there and, people talk about, birds and people talk about, issues at landfills. If you want to see issues at landfills, as we were driving around, there was literally flocks of seagulls. And I think almost every time that I've gone to our landfill, it's hard to find birds that are in our landfill. And I think the one thing I learned during that tour is that we do have a very responsible operator, that they are operating that facility in a way that is consistent with best practices of what Mass DEP is looking for. So to your point, I would not use that as a site to copy for their operation of their landfill. Merely the point is that when you have a landfill, there are sometimes opportunities that spin off, such as you take the methane gas and create electricity. And certainly creating electricity for the University of New Hampshire probably does have some benefits to the state of New Hampshire.
Okay. And just another comment,
this
sort of sets up...
Are we all set? Well, I was giving an extra couple because Mr. Clark had explained through his time.
Have
So
about another
we got about
minute.
another minute. Yeah,
We
sorry.
have another minute.
Another minute? Okay.
That's, yeah.
We speak of a master plan within this document. The town is trying to develop with the operator a master plan. Again, I was at those master planning sessions with the town membership, with town involvement. And, ironically, the dump and the landfill and everything associated with, they're always kind of at the lower end of the list. Here, again, we're having a whole town meeting focusing on the needs and wants of the town and the operator. It seems that, and we had citizens come here and speak, and again, their needs seem to be ignored. I'm very happy to hear that the chairperson is going to focus on that and see that these residents are treated fairly. It would be nice to incorporate the real master plan that the town population wants. So somehow this document would be great if it actually kind of matched up with the goals and wants of the citizenry. And just one last question. How does a huge thing like a gas to energy engine, how does that get built on land that doesn't even belong to an operator? I know a very specific business who can't seem to lay the first nail down, and they are operating within their own property, and every obstacle is being put in front of them. Including, I believe, the town spent almost $30,000 trying to seize liquor licenses. A building permit can't be given to this business, but somehow a huge gas-to-energy landfill
that baby in the corner.
thing is built on town property. General question, how does that happen in this town?
Each item has its own merits. And in one case, I'm not going to get into the liquor one, other than, any applicant that follows the rules, is expected to have approvals. When applicants don't follow the rules, they shouldn't expect to have approvals. To the point of the landfill and why was it an administrative oversight or whatever the accusation is, I think it's safe to say that the landfill was operated by the town of Southbridge beginning in 1979. And from 1979 on, there were elements of the airport property, basically a Quonset hut, a yellow Quonset hut, I don't know if it's yellow or not, whatever, the Quonset hut over by the landfill face, that was used by the town for landfill purposes. It came to my attention when George Chenyer, the former chairman of the Airport Commission, said to me, Chris, that's really on town property, and that's something that should be looked at and should be addressed. So to your point, I think mistakes are made over time, and certainly the town had landfill operations on its airport property. That was a town that started that, and what this is an attempt to do is to fix that and make it right. We do operate the airport as a enterprise operation, so this is a way to correct that and make sure that the airport does receive what it should be receiving. So, this is about trying to fix and move forward and make a better site and a better operation. But to the point, that's, if you want to blame somebody, blame the town, because the town started it in 1979.
I think that's exactly who I'm blaming. Thank you very much, and I urge you to table this item. It's very critical, and you need people here to let you know how things are going.
Unreal. Hi, Paul Zotos, 312 Main Street. I think it's a real shame, Dave, I think it's a real shame. We're 3 years from our 200th birthday, and after all the great things this town is known for, we're just going to be known for a dump and a landfill and problems and smells in 2 different places and a big pile of we don't know what at the end of Woodstock Road and West Street School, they're still pumping it. This town was known, had respect. It was an eye of a commonwealth. Todd A.O. came here and made better movies, fiber optics, glasses, and we're going to celebrate our birthday 3 years from now. And now if we did nothing for 200 years, we could be a dump. If we did nothing, sat here for 200 years, it'd be a great place to put a dump. But 200 years of hard work, 200 years of industrial labor work, every stone, every brick you see in this town, we did with our hands. And we're going to celebrate our birthday that we've got nothing but now a big dump and 3 jobs. The manager's office got 3 jobs in that same amount of time as the landfill. 3 jobs in one little room and 3 jobs up there. That's it. That's crazy. But there's nothing I can do about that. But that didn't happen in 1979. This town was nice when I decided to come home. This town was beautiful. I was in Beverly Hills and I decided to come back here. This town was nice, It doesn't look nice anymore. It's nothing for us to be proud of right at this moment. And just tonight, can I give you guys a suggestion? Next time you do this, bring a map. Just what you explained about the airport land, we built a dump on an airport land. Show us a map of that so we know where you're talking. We know what exactly you were saying to us. We did the landfill extension without maps. I brought that projector so we could see, and they never used it, hardly. And if they did use it, we couldn't read what's on it. You're talking about land tonight and nobody brought a map? I got the map of the world right here in my phone. I got a Google map, I got an Apple map. And I can grab any map I want and Bluetooth it right to that TV screen. Bluetooth, no wires, from my phone right now. You want to see the landfill? Want me to do it?
We all have maps.
Well, you have, but we don't. No one knows.
People that vote all have maps.
We don't have maps. We didn't have maps during the landfill extension. We didn't have maps at meetings, and we don't have a map here tonight. I don't see a map. Couldn't you point to us and show us where this blue building is and show us where this great landfill, great industrial park is? Excuse me.
Is there anything else?
There was somebody talking. I'm just waiting for the talking.
Anything else?
I would like to have maps, charts, conceptual drawings of this welcome center. Did you ever hear of a conceptual drawing? Maps, charts, conceptual drawing. Have the boys from the video go up there and make a video. Let's do a tour up there. Let's have a meeting up there. Let's stand on this scrub brush and decide. We can make businesses here. We got industrial parks all over this town. We got spaces for rent all over this town. We don't need to get jobs by scrub brush. We get towns right here in downtown Southbridge, right here on our land. We got an airport, we got a hospital, we got water, we got a school, we got a lot of things. We got this giant landfill. I don't want it any bigger. I hear it's leaking and we're making it bigger before we stop the leak or find the leak. We're going to make it bigger. We can't make it bigger, and we can't maximize it. And now, airspace. Let's see a map of the airspace that they're going to fill with trash above it. Come on, people, huh? let's stop this thing now. Let's get control of it with our hands and make this town proud and make everybody else proud around us and say, hey, Southbridge, they did the right thing. Now they're on the right track. We'll get jobs. We'll get jobs. We'll get businesses to come back. We can do all those things. We did it for almost 200 years, and then we thought a landfill was going to save us. I think there's 5 people running that hotel down there. 5 people. 5 jobs, a whole hotel. I don't know how many, but it's not the jobs we wanted down at that hotel, is it? And this isn't the jobs either, you know? We didn't vote on the school. We didn't vote on the landfill. I guess we're not going to vote on this, and we're not even going to see a map. I'd like a 3D railroad model of this landfill so we could actually go up and see it, touch it, and know exactly what it was. And that's the way you do these things. Not you have maps and we just got to say, yeah. No, get us some maps so we could all look at and get this information to us. We don't have TV, radio, newspapers anymore. Where is the Southbridge News? They're not here.
Okay. Special. Okay, I'm going back to this agenda item now. I'm going to read it again, and we're going to see where we're going from here. Does anybody have anything further to discuss up here? You, Counselor? Go ahead.
Just quickly and briefly, I live right smack across the street from Commercial Drive. So I hate when the public gets up there and perceives things, okay? I am at home. I leave my house at 8 a.m. every day. The truck traffic does not wake me up at 6 a.m. Do trucks probably go up there 6:45? Yes. I've walked my neighborhood, leaving my house at 6:30 in the morning and walk around. So when people in the neighborhood say all these things, let's paint the real picture, okay? Because there's times that I am off during the week, and I see it. It's a state highway, okay? We have a commercial drive road that we're trying to expand industrial growth. I agree, it is slow process. Sometimes we make things hotter than it has to be. I had a complaint from a citizen about trash on Commercial Drive. What did I do? Because I don't need to do all my work on camera. I call the town manager up and I say the next day, can you do me a favor? And I know other councils do too. There's some trash there. Can you make sure they take care of it? And it was taken care of. And I respect him now if he stays and holds them to the law. If trucks really start going up that early, call me. I will call the town manager and get on it. But the bottom line is it's Commercial Drive. It is a road that, yes, goes to the landfill, that we do have property that we're trying to develop. People don't like the word Casella. That's the truth. That is the truth. They don't like that word Casella. The landfill's not going anywhere until it's full. So let's utilize it the best we can to our value, the best. Am I a fan of everything? But when I hear smell, God, I'm sorry. There's probably more smell at Big Y section than there is at the landfill. Let's talk the truth. That's baloney. Okay? The truth. So before anyone starts saying, did Dave Landry get paid from Casella? No, he didn't. Okay? I probably live the closest of them all. And I never hear too many peeps from my neighborhood. And if they think I'm not representing them, so be it. But I always speak the truth. I'm not trying to paint a picture any other way. So I have to get that off my chest and tell it like it is. I have different things on upcoming agendas that I have different ideas that I will expand to. But all we're trying to do is sell a little piece of land, okay, and have another road put in because, there's people out there that are Facebooking, the Charlton's worried. Well, if that road goes in, Charlton, all they're going to have to do is loop around now. We're not saying we're shutting you off from the world because that'll be a discussion later on. Let's lay it out there. When I became a councilor 2 years ago, the town manager took me up there. He kind of showed things, what he's looking at and stuff like that. We had a meeting the other night. We had maps right in front of us, okay? There was, yes, Mr. Buxton did show up. He showed up late, and I do agree, if he is on a committee, he should be informed. That's one thing I absolutely agree on. But we have meetings, no one shows up to them, and then they're going to say, well, no one knows about the meetings. We have a scroll at the town hall. We try to communicate as best we can, and sometimes that's not good enough. But the real issue is people don't like the word Casella in our landfill. That's the real issue. So I am going to be moving forward tonight. I will be voting yes on this. If people want to say shame on him and I'm not representing the community, I think I am. I live right smack across the street from that, and I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say not in my neighborhood when Councilor Chairwoman Nicola said it correct. Pleasant Street people had to deal with that for many, many years. That's a residential neighborhood. Unfortunately, I agree, hey, I'm not a fan of it in my neighborhood, but that's where it's zoned to be. So that's what it is. So I will be moving forward, and I'm sorry, but I had to get that off my chest. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay. Anybody else on this issue? Counselor Marcucci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I agree with Councilor Langevin. Unfortunately, you know, years past, we were not a fan. It was kind of a pressure cooker at the time when wood recycling and that site assignment process happened. I was on the Board of Health then, and it was very heated, very debated, and it passed. That slowly died off. Casella took over. And through all the years of being a citizen in the town of Southbridge and being a member of the council, every step of the way through all of this, once Casella had established, was who wants to have a business next to a landfill? Who possibly wants to be next to a landfill? Who in their right mind would ever open a business up there? And we have a company that's interested and possibly a second company. So I don't understand, I understand everyone's issues tonight. What I don't understand is why we're talking trash when it has nothing to do with trash, the agenda item 10 and 11. It's the development of our industrial park. If it ever came to a point of talking trash, then absolutely, but this is not part of the agenda this evening. And I just don't want misconception out there to the citizens of Southbridge, and then seeing in the paper tomorrow and rants and raves that the council, you know, extended the landfill and now we're going to have more trash in town, because that's the farthest thing from the truth. This is allowing someone to come in and develop our industrial park, and I think that's what we all want. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Clements.
Thank you. I see this as fixing a safety issue, as it's been pointed out in one respect with Barefoot Road. I see, as the other councilors, that it opens up land that will make it more valuable to the town to sell and develop, which had been at a hold, roadblocked for many years to even happening. And that potentially businesses, which could potentially include jobs. But I also point out, when we did some of those landfill tours, you'd be amazed at what was in those industrial parks. Computer places, I mean, it was technology businesses were in their parks. I don't expect that truly from ours. I expect more of an industrial type business setting up there, just because of locational. But we have great water up there, we have sewer up there, we have the means and property to make some money for this town, which in turn will one of these days keep our taxes down instead of continually rising. You know, I mean, that's my hope, right? That's what we're supposed to be doing, is eventually curb the tax bill. Maybe it won't go up so high. But basically, it's a win-win on this, and I don't see it as the others also don't see it. It's not about trash tonight, it's about our future and the development, and that's why I'm going to vote for it also. Thank you.
Counselor?
I'd just like to say, I do really appreciate Councillor Langevin comments on this. I know that there seems to be a lot of hysteria surrounding this topic, and that's actually one of the reasons why I really wanted to table this vote this evening, because given that not everybody keeps tabs on the bulletin board at the town clerk's office and knows when general government is and everything, people generally rely on finding information about what we're doing by watching these meetings here. That's just the information habits of the majority of people who follow what we do. And I know personally that I would feel a little taken aback if my first knowledge of plans for stuff involving land swaps and common goals and everything were decided in a meeting that I'm watching, a week or two after the fact, because I think that there are a lot of opinions in this town, and there are a lot of people who don't agree with each other, and I think it makes sense to try to hear from everybody and then do the best you can to go from there. But in terms of this being an economic development for the town, I will be the first person to say that the industrial park is not my issue. I made no mention of the industrial park in the town manager's review because I don't see it as a priority for the town. And I know that this is, I take a different view on certain issues relating to economic development from a lot of the people up here, and that's okay. But in my running for office and talking to people, it seems like people were really more concerned about redevelopment of existing land uses within the town. We have 200 years now of industrial history within the community. That's a lot of land use. There's land that's fallen into blight. There's vacant buildings in our downtown core. Our infrastructure needs help on a lot of different levels. And in terms of this being an attractive place to bring a business or raise a family, I think that those are the kinds of things that people see and base their decision-making on, as opposed to industrial parkland. If you go to the Mass Development website, you will see lots of industrial parkland on the market throughout the state of Massachusetts, much of which is much flatter with better highway access than our mountain next to the landfill. So although I think that land does have a lot of potential value, I think it would be of more potential value down the line once the landfilling operation has concluded and it's been capped. In the meantime, if we can work on that's great. But at the same time, I don't feel like this should be our policy priority in terms of development of the town when we have, a downtown sector that is rotting, and it's we're lucky if we have social services in a building as opposed to it being vacant. And I, for one, would really like us to try to shift our focus a bit. And that's just my opinion. Thank you for your time.
I would like to second that vote, because I think this vote is the beginning of something no good.
Second what vote? What do you?
Second, her motion.
There's no motion.
I thought she made a motion.
No.
I didn't know.
That motion's off the table.
Thank you.
Okay. Did you have something? Yeah.
I'll try to keep it brief as well. Since we've been doing this for about 90 minutes, while I've read through the RFP, and as they generally are, it is pretty generic in terms of what it's looking for. In the 90 minutes that we've been discussing this, as well as going through, I was not able to make that general government subcommittee meeting. I know from looking at it, very few of us made that meeting. But there are certainly still concerns, a great number of concerns that are out there, and I have no problem personally postponing, because I don't feel that voting on it tonight is going to preclude us from making this happen May 13th or later on in May, June, whenever. So in the good faith effort of trying to make sure that we can put our ducks in a row and help out the general public in terms of understanding what exactly this is and helping ourselves understand what exactly this is, I would be in support of postponing or tabling the matter to a future date. That's all.
I would like to make a motion to table agenda items 9 and 10, pending a, 10 and 11, pending perhaps a council of the whole meeting.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Any discussion on that? Can I have a roll call on the motion to table this agenda items number 10 and number 11?
Council Moriarty?
Yes.
Council Nicola?
No.
Council Peliquin?
Yes.
Council Vandal?
Yes.
Council Clemens?
No.
Council Langevin?
No.
Council Marcucci?
Yes.
4 yes, 3 no.
And I'd like, since you originated this, what's the date that we can expect to bring this back so that we can move on, get some progress going in this community?
I don't believe I have the authority to call a meeting.
Well, no, you don't have the authority to call the meeting, my dear, but you certainly have the authority to table the motion to a later date. What is the later date?
I can't really say when the other counselors would be available at this time, but perhaps at the next meeting I could announce a date, if that
Well,
would.
it will be the next meeting. So that for the citizenry that's out there actually watching this on TV, and the few of you that are sitting here in the audience, it will be the next meeting date. So I suggest that you get your hands on this paperwork and do your research so that you know what you're talking about when you come forward. And that will, and I'm not, excuse me, no. You go and get a map, Mr. Zotos, okay? Find your way to one. Moving right along to agenda item number 12. Mr. Zotos, that will be enough from you. Yes. I know you don't know how to behave in public. Could you quiet down? Yeah. One more word and I'll call somebody and have you removed. Agenda item number 12, vote to approve the contract between the Town of Southbridge and Stantec Consulting Services, Incorporated, to commence the design construction for Phase 2 reconstruction of the Southbridge Municipal Airport and to appropriate $192,305.46 from account number 6901 Receipts Reserved Insurance in excess of $20,000 to account number 9805 Tornado Damage Special Appropriation Account.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Langevin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for public's information, and I did briefly speak upon this in general government, but I'm going to be voting no tonight. It's pretty generic and basic, but my question was to the town manager, and it's a question that I would hope all councilors, we look into this property, is the airport. What value does the Southbridge Airport bring to the town of Southbridge? We have a contract up there with Jim Latour Flying Service, and I believe I want to throw out the leasing agreement. I'm going back to previous, it's like $15,000. You know, there was much discussion when the DOD was coming to town that businesses are going to land their planes there and stuff like that. And the reason I'm getting to this point is, as much as it's a beautiful area there, and it's a beautiful area for that little diner that have people come in on weekends, they do a great little business, but people fly in, they have their breakfast, and they fly out. And again, I need more hard numbers, but it's like $15,000, and we have this prime location area that is definitely buildable for industrial growth up there. The flying service is a nice thing, but people are going to perceive this the wrong way, but it's a luxury. Not many people can afford it. Where I look at that land layout, and I would have to get more information. That's why I'm just bringing this up today, that I think as a council of a whole, we need to really assess that value up there of that land, because we all know, it's no secret that we're looping water and sewer up around there right now. That's better property land there than there is almost on Commercial Drive. So if we're really looking at business, and again, that's why I was saying what I was saying, and we can disagree and stuff like that, what does the Southbridge Airport bring to the Southbridge, town of Southbridge as a whole versus that whole land up there? And Mr. Clark, you know, I'm going to put you a little on the spot, but you think it was maybe like 8 acres, guessing?
Inside the fenced area is about 80 acres, the airport property.
8 acres of flat land that is pretty much almost ready to build now. And what we do is we take grant money, and we know we're all we're grant, and we put it into the airport that really is doing nothing for our community as a whole. So I just can't go and vote, even though we're talking insurance money, tornado, and this and that. I can't go and say yes to anything more to the Southbridge Airport until I get more information, and I would hope fellow councilors would agree to get more information on the current contract. We already know, because I did ask this question, and our town manager did say that the leasing agreement, he has to chase money from this guy. Well, that's crazy. So I'm voting no tonight specifically on that reason. Hopefully that we can maybe refer this to general government and get more insight of how much is the airport, what's the value of the airport versus what's the value of the land to the town of Southbridge for expanding their growth on industrial growth. So there's a lot of twists to that, but that's the reason why I will be voting no on this agenda tonight. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilor Marcucci?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mr. Clark. Mr. Clark, I don't want to put you certainly on the spot, but what do you feel, it's the first time I've heard this, what do you feel about Councilor Langevin's observation and his thoughts?
Well, you know what, I'll say what I said the other night. I think that there are certain times in which there's a policy decision that has to be made about what the town wants to do. From my standpoint, we had a tornado that went through. Do you want to have a 5-minute recess? Or?
If you want to take 5 minutes, we can take 5 minutes.
I just,
go ahead and take care of that.
For the sake of.
We're going to take a 5-minute recess. This has been going on now for 3 hours. I'll come back to you. Thank you. know, everybody's got their thing. Okay, we're going to resume the meeting. Everybody here? Mr. Clark, you were responding to Councilor Marcucci's question?
Yes, the question is, where are we with the airport? I don't think this is on yet. So, there, okay, waiting for the buzz. I know that sounds bad. In terms of, I guess, my overview of the airport, I just wish to make a couple comments, and these are the comments that I made the other night. We are at a somewhat of a unique position that we have insurance coverage for the airport. The airport was damaged as a result of the tornado. We have been negotiating with the insurance company to rebuild the airport. In essence, there was 4 structures that were damaged or destroyed, basically 3 hangars and a terminal building. What we have been able to take the insurance proceeds to date and rebuild the last hangar that was built, the blue hangar, and we probably will not receive enough money from the insurance proceeds to build both the terminal building and a hangar, which is combined, and then a second a second hangar. So we don't have enough money to accomplish a total rebuild. The proposal that you have before you this evening is to seek to have a contract with Stantec to do phase 2, which would be to reconstruct the terminal building, rebuild a hangar, and we already have the other hangar was already designed. So we are at a point in which, in order to complete that, the town needs to have, that was weird, birds chirping. I'm sorry. So in order to complete the rebuild, we would have to utilize FAA grant dollars that we have been stockpiling, knowing that we would have to do that. If, as the question was raised, that is this an opportunity to look at the way we do the airport? Is the airport the best location, the best use of that property up there? I think it's actually an interesting question because we're in the midst of a rebuild. If we didn't want to commit grant funds, if we didn't want to, or if the council had some concern about maintaining and sustaining an airport up there, we probably should not continue to try to do the rebuild. If the intent of this council is to make up and rebuild what the tornado took away, then this gets us to that end. So what I have laid before the community in terms of the tornado took away 3 hangars and a terminal building, this puts us on a path to rebuild that utilizing grant funds because we were not able to obtain enough back in insurance proceeds. If the question is about whether the airport makes sense or continues to make sense, is it a profitable venture for the town? As I said the other night, in ideal circumstances, it generates about $15,000 a year for us, and it costs us about $15,000. So it's at best a break-even proposition. And I do, and I have since 2008, have to collect on numerous occasions from the current vendor up there. So I guess that's kind of my overview as to where we are. I think the actions that are contemplated, if you want to take time to think about what you want to do with that site in the long run, then one of the things that will do is, in order to have that grant money available, they have a grant cycle, and we will miss this year's grant cycle if this doesn't proceed. Is that the worst thing in the world? I think, if we don't want to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in something that we may not have long-term interest in, then it's probably worthwhile to delay that and make an informed decision. So that's really for the council, though, as opposed to me, in terms of whether the council wants to give some thought to the future of it. What I've done, which I believe is my job, is to try to rebuild what the tornado took away, and that's what I presented this evening. But I think the question is beyond that scope. What is the future of that site, and is that really the best use of that site? And I can't answer that, for the town. I can tell you what it does for us, and I can tell you the issues that we have. But beyond that, I think it really is for council. But I think either, if additional discussion is going to entail, then that probably will delay the rebuild.
So basically, Mr. Clark, what I'm getting out of what you said is there's no financial gain for the town of Southbridge for the airport.
From a strictly finance
Yes.
perspective, no, it's a break-even proposition at best.
And with the grant money, if we don't vote on it this evening, we're going to lose the grant? Or do we have a little bit of time to think about this and discuss it, like at general government or something?
Yeah,
Are we
I
under
don't-
time constraint?
Yeah, that's a great question. The grant round that they're currently in, we would need to kind of proceed tonight in order to make this grant round. What we have done, though, is we have been banking, if you would, previous grants to build up, so we would have enough to try to do this. So we would miss this round. We wouldn't necessarily lose out on the money. We'd lose out on the availability of the money for this year, but it would be available next year. It does accumulate over time.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Madam Chair.
Before I turn it over to you, I want to piggyback a little bit on what Councilor Marcucci was talking about. With that said, if we decided to hold off on this and not proceed with the rebuild, that money that you have been banking as a result of grants is, I'm assuming, dedicated specifically to the rebuild of an airport. Would we have to give the money back that's been banked for this purpose?
No, but that brings up, the money is for FAA purposes. It would have to be for airport purposes. Now, and the reason why I kind of want to, just as an example, if we were to rebuild the second hangar and the terminal building, utilize that grant money, let's say $500,000 of grant money to do that, and then the town decided a year down the line that we want to be out of the airport business, it is a grant that we would have to pay back if we no longer had it for its intended purpose. That's why I think, some delay to make a decision makes sense, because I would rather the town not lose out on investing $500,000 in a project to only then not make use of it and then have to pay that money back.
Thank you. Councilor Vandal, go ahead.
Why don't we use the services of Bay Path up there to build? I've brought that up on 3 or 4 different occasions, and it doesn't seem like anybody's, even asks about it. They would love to come into Southbridge and help us build, a new office and build it. I can see they're not going to do the metal buildings, but they could do a lot with wood. They could, redo a lot of that stuff up there, and it would only cost us the price of wood. And the reason I think we're not making any money up there is because we got a lousy contract. When we signed that contract, I was here then at the time, and we gave the contract to the fellow that's running it now. We got the restaurant up there. He gets money for the restaurant, and he keeps it. That's a lousy contract. Really, that's not a good contract at all. So I don't know how many more years. I think it was a 10-year contract we had given him.
It was 20.
20, oh, see.
It's a long time left.
That's a long time, So, just a point. Thank you.
That's a good point. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Moriarty.
Through you to the manager, referencing what Council Langevin had referenced is in terms of kind of having to hunt people down to kind of get the money back that's owed to the town. The tornado hard as it may be to believe, was almost 2 years ago now. Was this an issue prior to the tornado, or is this something that's kind of come up since the tornado?
Yeah, just to be clear, I've been the manager since 2008. Prior to the tornado, he was delinquent. I believe prior to the tornado, he owed us about 3 months. As part of the lease agreement, that the hangar that got damaged actually decreased his lease obligation to us, dropping it from basically about $2,500 a month down to $250 a month. And it's been $250 a month since the tornado, and even that has not been paid in a timely fashion.
With the discussion then, if it so pleases the council, I'd be more than happy to make a motion to defer this for further study at subcommittee level.
Motion, Counselor? I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion regarding that? Councilor Delahunt?
I would agree that I would like to discuss this further. I was pretty flabbergasted when I found out the dollar figure that the operator is paying per month to rent this airport. It costs less money to rent the Southbridge airport than to rent a one-bedroom apartment at market rate in town. So I think there's potentially a lot we could do to get more value from the property, definitely. But at the same time, there's a lot of people who really, really like the airport in town. I mean, my children love to go to the airport diner and watch the planes, and I don't want to be the woman who closed the airport. So I would be interested in voting yes on this agenda item tonight, so we have the option of the grant money on the table, but just because we agreed to apply for the grant doesn't necessarily mean we're committed to anything further than that. Is that much? Aside from...
Well, I would hesitate only that in my experience, if we were to spend the 192, that there is a implied within the FAA that we will proceed to finish the project. And in my experience, if you design something without the intent on actually building it, then codes always seem to change, things seem to change, and it usually becomes more expensive. So in the design world, I think you design it once and you build it once. And if we were to proceed with this and then delay, I think we just wasted $200,000, would be my opinion.
Yeah. Councilor Clements and then Councilor Lanchman.
Thank you. I too had concerns when I read this. I was out of town, couldn't make the general government meeting. However, I did make sure I got in touch with Mr. Clark because I had some strong concerns. Regardless of whether we postpone this tonight and do some more research, which is our due diligence, I think, I do think airports in general can be a very big asset to a community. Now, is ours being operated functionally to be that asset? It doesn't appear so. Can we do something about that? I would think so, and I would hope so, and those are some of the concerns I brought to the manager's attention. Just this weekend, it was kind of funny because I had that conversation Friday, and this weekend somebody commented about the Pan Mass Challenge and how many people come in to see that and bike it, and they were just discussing that. And it wouldn't seem like there's a correlation, but a person said, I didn't realize it was an airport until I was up on the hill, and then I see these airplanes landing and people getting out with bikes, and apparently there are Pan Mass Challengers that fly in and with somebody, and or maybe they charter a plane and come in. I'm not sure how it worked, but they were coming for the Pan Mass Challenge to our airport. So you just never really know who flies into our airport and out of our airport. We're just not always up there to see that. So I think futuristically, again, it has great value to our community as an asset, and it puts us on the map. A lot of people do stop in. Maybe it's just for lunch, but they know where Southbridge is, and these generally are people of means who can fly equipment such as this or rent it and come here. So maybe in the back of their mind, they're remembering that they came to Southbridge and there was a municipal airport here, and that it has value to their future locations, perhaps. Again, just a thought. So, I'm all for the due diligence to see what else we can get out of this, but I do think ultimately a local municipal airport run efficiently, correctly, is a big asset to a community. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Lanchman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. just again, and correct me if I'm wrong, these airport hangars that we're rebuilding from tornadoes and stuff, the current operator rents out space for them. So we're rebuilding them. He's renting out the space to help pay for his lease, that he doesn't hold his end of the bargain up. Okay, so I'm just making sure, because I'm telling her, I believe I'm correct. I don't want anyone to think I'm against the airport, because it is a nice little place, and I know numerous people that love to go up there and eat. But again, I'm just trying, that's why I appreciate everyone giving their feedback and input on this, to go back to general government and get more information, because even the diner, it's only seasonal. It's short periods, so I'm just looking at ways to get the most out of that land up there. So I just see different visions, that's all. And I do remember, I can't tell you the last contractor that was in, they did try to go to a different contract, and that was a fiasco. Mr. Latour, no disrespect to him, there wasn't many other people out there that were even interested in running an airport. So that's why I just think it's appropriate right now to bring this to the table, and let's assess where we want to go. If this council as a whole wants to continue putting money into the airport, that's their opinion. But if this council wants to go to a different direction and develop it more for industrial growth, then so be it. But that's why I just felt like I had to bring this up tonight, so we can have discussion in the future. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. I think every counselor on the dais here has weighed in, and I'd like to be one of them. I'm very torn on the issue of the airport. It's always been a source of pride to me, the fact that we actually had one in this community, and I've utilized it as a young person. I flew in and out of that airport on many occasions and was glad that it was there. I like to think that if it was run properly and it was rebuilt properly, it could become an asset to our industrial park, which is right down the road. And it might be a draw for some certain types of businesses. However, as it stood prior to the tornado, I don't think it was really much of an asset. It's not a moneymaker, as it stood now. And it has some issues, and a lot of the services up there have dwindled over the years. As you say, you can't even go to that little restaurant except for, a seasonal time part of the year. And the hangars were pretty beat up. I mean, I hate to say it, but the tornado did that airport a favor. So I think that, I agree that a little bit more discussion regarding the fate of that airport should probably be in our future. And I personally don't have a problem if we miss this cycle. As you said, it would be prudent not to be spending money or going after money that we would have to pay back. I don't want to be in that business. And to me, it promotes bad faith when you go ahead and do stuff like that, pretty much knowing that you're not going to continue with it. So if, I think we've all spoken, and there's a motion on the table to table this, at least for the time being. I say we move on that. Could I have a roll call, please, on the motion to table this item?
Councilor Nicola?
Yes.
Councilor Peliquin?
Yes.
Councilor Vandal?
Yes.
Councilor Clements?
Yes.
Councilor Langevin?
Yes.
Councilor Marcucci?
Yes.
Councilor Moriarty?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. This item is tabled for the time being. Agenda item number 13, review and vote to approve the contract between the Town of Southbridge and Freitas Construction of Ludlow, Mass. for the Charlton Street reconstruction project in the amount of $423,883.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilor Peliquin?
Yes.
Councilor Vandal?
Yes.
Councilor Clements?
Yes.
Councilor Langevin?
Yes.
Councilor Marcucci?
Yes.
Councilor Moriarty?
Yes.
Councilor Nicola?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Agenda item number 14, vote to approve the establishment of the Bicentennial Ad Hoc Committee.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion?
Did you want to? Chair, just if I could, you have in front of you the establishment of the Bicentennial Committee. I realize that what I should have done, we did receive a recommendation, I believe, from the committee to have the co-chairs be Stephen Brady and Sean Moriarty, the honorary chairperson, Phil Pettinelli, and then the financial overseer, Richard Harwood. And then there would be additional people that would come forth at a later date to add to the committee. So I just want to make sure for the purposes, it's an establishment of the committee and those following appointments to that, so we can get them started, and then as additional names come forward, we will provide those to the council for adoption as well.
Should I amend the vote to approve the establishment of the Bicentennial Ad Hoc Committee to include?
Maybe, Madam Chair, if you like,
Positions.
if you said as, you could just put in there as presented, and then as presented, it has those names on it.
So we're going to change it slightly. Can I have a motion to amend the agenda item number 14, vote to approve the establishment of the Bicentennial Ad Hoc Committee as presented?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Can I have a roll call on that amendment, please?
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Marcucci?
Yes.
Counselor Moriarty?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Peliquin?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Okay. On the vote itself. Vote to approve the establishment of the Bicentennial Ad Hoc Committee as presented. I don't need to read it, or do I? I will. Establishment. There shall be an ad hoc committee known as the Bicentennial Committee appointed by the town manager, subject to confirmation by the town council, which shall consist of up to 25 members serving from the date of appointment through March 31st, 2017. Within the committee, there shall be a chairperson or co-chairpersons, an honorary chairperson, a clerk's secretary, and a finance overseer. These positions shall be initially filled as follows. The co-chairpersons are Stephen Brady and Sean Moriarty. Honorary chairperson is Philip Pettinelli, and the financial overseer is Richard Harwood. The purpose of the committee is to undertake all tasks which will be directly and/or indirectly related to the planning and running of all events and initiatives to celebrate the 200th anniversary of the town of Southbridge in 2016. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion? Could we have a roll call, please?
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Marcucci?
Yes.
Counselor Moriarty?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Peliquin?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Agenda item number 15, Councilors Forum. Councilor Moriarty.
So I'll have two things. One is just kind of building off that last part as far as the Bicentennial Committee meeting, Bicentennial Committee rather. That group has already had a number of meetings. It's been publicized, different areas. But since we're kind of on that topic, just as an open invitation to anyone and everyone that is interested in having a hand, formally or informally, that group meets the third Wednesday of each month here at Town Hall at 7 o'clock. So the next meeting would be May 15th, currently scheduled for the Rice Conference Room, assuming we don't get bumped out by a subcommittee. So those are open to anyone and everyone. There are a number of people that have been involved, a lot of great ideas, and very pleased with that momentum thus far. And along with that, you can find the Bicentennial on Facebook, Southbridge 200 or Southbridge Bicentennial. You can find it there. A website's being tinkered with and put together, and it's also set up with a Twitter account of @Southbridge 200, I believe. So that information is all there for those who may be interested. And then secondly, just as a plug, Sunday, May 5th is the annual Relay Fun Day down on the Town Common from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. This is put together by Ron Ravenel and the folks from the local Relay for Life to benefit the fight against cancer, and they do a great job. It's kind of like Southbridge Fest, but not quite. They have, I think, at least 3 bands, music, games, food, different vendors will be on hand, the whole 9 yards, and just about all of the money coming in, or a good portion of the money coming in, does go towards Relay for Life, American Cancer Society. And according to the weather forecast, aside from this whole week, this weekend is supposed to be great, so no excuses not to be there. Thank you.
Excellent. What time is it?
10 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Thank you.
On the Common.
Thank you. Councilor Vandal?
Thank you. Pertains to Woodstock Road and East Main Street, when the construction company lays pipes down across the road, they have to bring it up to the road's surface. Over the weekend, they didn't do that, and it caused a lot of, problems down there. And I think, we ought to remind them that they have to bring, especially for the whole weekend, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday, and I don't think that was right. And then I asked for lawyers' bills 3 weeks ago, and I still haven't got them. I want the lawyers' bills for a year, the past year, of all the lawyers that we paid money to. Okay? Thank you. That's all I have.
And my apologies, Counselor. I should have had that for you.
Okay,
I apologize.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor. Councilor Peliquin?
A couple of things. I get a lot of phone calls from citizens in general, I guess. People tend to call me because I tend to pick up, and I end up talking to a lot of people from week to week in town. And there's the sort of theme we've been getting in terms of the last, I'm not sure, like few months. Now that the weather's warming up and people are spending more time out on the sidewalks, the dog waste on the sidewalks thing, I think everybody in town I know has told me something about how much they hate the dog waste on the sidewalks. And I hate it too. More than one occasion, my daughter has come home smeared with stuff because it has gotten into the wheels of the stroller, and I have to scrub it out, and it's disgusting. And I was in Maine South in Worcester. I work on a couple of campaigns in Worcester, and I'm there every so often. And I was really taken aback by how clean the streets are in this neighborhood where people get shot and stabbed. But in Southbridge, they're covered in dog feces everywhere. It's really surprising. Also, I don't know where we are with trying to crack down on the illegal dumping, but I've noticed that it's spread to areas that I have not seen it previously. If you look up Eastford Road down to the state line, there's a mattress out on the parking lot at the old Two Cousins Pizza restaurant. There's 2 mattresses down at the state line between Connecticut and Massachusetts. And I know that we have a regional landfill, but the entire town is not a dump. So please do not leave your mattress on the side of the road. Please. And I don't know if this is something that we can try to look into more aggressively with like security cameras in areas where illegal dumping tends to occur, but this is really a problem in terms of, I think, our community's self-esteem and just like the culture of the respect for the common areas in the community that we share. And if there's anything more that we can do to address these problems within the community, I would heartily encourage us to do as much as we can, because I think that people see this when they come here, and it really impacts their perception of our community as a whole. And I know that I'm preaching to the choir here. Everybody, I think, up here agrees with me that this is a big issue, and I don't know the best way to address it, but I hope this is something we can focus on more. And the other thing, we had in our packets the minutes from the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting of April 11th, and I have some concern with the minutes of this meeting. I attended this meeting. According to the minutes, the only people present were Lynn Bertrand and Chad Splain, which are 2 of the ZBA members. It doesn't list the ZBA members and alternates that were not present. There's a number of people who were present at this meeting that aren't listed on the minutes. Nick Tortis, the building inspector, was there, sitting with the board members. I was there. Evelyn Petrelli came in. I don't know when you came in, Mrs. Petrelli. I know you were sitting behind me, but you were there too. And the town manager had showed up before the vote happened, and I believe the town manager, the building inspector, and myself all conversed with the board members regarding the property before their vote was held, and none of this is reflected in the minutes. And that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. There are also other things that came up at that meeting that I have some pretty serious concerns about. The chair of the ZBA alleged that the building owner was stalking her, and she had to file a complaint against him. And when I asked her what she was talking about, she said that she had been called 4 times in 4 months with requests for documents. Because I guess the town clerk's office didn't retain them. They were just forwarded straight to the ZBA, and I don't know exactly what happened. But that's a pretty serious allegation, and I was very taken aback. So I would like these minutes to be updated to reflect a bit more about what actually happened at this meeting. I know that I addressed the board with concerns about vacant properties in town. I guess this property in question was actually broken into subsequent to the ZBA meeting, and 4 people were arrested there for using it as a home base to break into cars. So these vacant buildings are really a very bad thing to have in the community. And if somebody, I understand that this has been a contentious project and the town has not necessarily had the best operating relationship with the owner of the building, but just as, you know, our relationship with Casella is not always perfect, we look at them as a partner because they're a stakeholder in the community. I think that we should try to do the best we can to be partners with all of the building owners in the community, even though some of the buildings, I agree, are eyesores and look bad and people want to knock them down. We have $75,000 in our demolition budget for the upcoming budget. It's pretty much spoken for on Mill Street, so just because you don't like a building doesn't mean there's anything you can actually do about it, because we don't have the money to demolish every vacant building in town that we don't like. So I would like the town to try to do their best to see something developed on these properties downtown that are just bringing down our town. It's embarrassing that we're willing to bend over backwards for a trash company, but people who own small buildings are going to court with the town because I don't even know why. I mean, I know there's issues with the permitting process that I think that we could collaboratively work to address, and I think that we should work harder. And that's just my opinion. I know that different people have different opinions about this project, but I just wanted to get that out there. So thank you. That's it for me tonight, Madam Chair.
Councilor Marcucci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick observation through you to Mr. Clark. Mr. Clark, several months ago I had raised an issue with McKinstry Brook and the littering that was there, the tires, the tarps. Well, now there's tarps and TVs. Last week on my way to work, was our DPW department cleaning that up? Because it was a yellow truck, and since our conversation of just, you know, approximately 50 tires, someone, excuse me, threw hundreds and hundreds of yards of tarp, and there was a big screen TV there, but I thought it was our DPW department that ended up cleaning that up, and if they did, you know, just want to acknowledge them.
Yeah, I'm not sure who cleaned it up. I'll have to look. I know we had DPW crews up there because they were cutting the brush along the fence line, so I know we had people out there because the airport does look a lot better from them doing some of that effort. But I'll have to check. I actually thought that material was still out there, but if it has been cleaned up?
It's clean. And like I said, I really thought it was our DPW, and I would just like, you know, to publicly thank them for doing that, because I know you said it's state-owned or federally, yeah, so, and it was just getting, becoming increasingly full of trash in that small area. So if it was our DPW, I would like to thank them. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilor Langevin.
Through you to the town manager, I believe Councilor Moriarty asked this question probably a couple months ago, and I have to say the brains of our state, right where that new intersection's being made, they're there is a light post right on the sidewalk. What about our handicap accessible people going when there's a light post for the traffic signal right smack in the middle of the sidewalk? So that's concern number one. Right by Ideal Pool. If you go down there, you'll see it. It's so blatant that there's no common sense there. And then two, could we have our police department, and I'm going to say this, be aggressive on our noise bylaw? We got the boom boxes hanging and going around again and stuff like that. And when I say being aggressive, no warning. No warning. Tag them. Send the message to Highway right away. And if people want to say I'm cold for that, usually what happens, you give them a warning, you leave, they go down the street and they turn it right back up again. So maybe if we're aggressive on our noise bylaw in putting it down to a normal roar, we'll have a little more continuity in our town. That's just one thing. And in reading the packet, I appreciate you guys going in the neighborhoods, walking around and starting to be a little more aggressive. And I hope that continues throughout the year. Because Councilor Pelquin is right, and I said it before, people need to start taking a little ownership in their own properties. And if we allow that to happen, it just continues to happen. So I appreciate your efforts on that, and I just hope we continue that throughout the year. And that's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Clements?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was brought to my attention this evening that there were no agendas on the back table. Did they get put out eventually?
I did put them out.
Okay, all right, somebody mentioned that to me. And something about the agenda not being posted on the website. So I'm not sure if that was true or not. I'm just asking, and maybe we can just make sure that it continues to get posted so people have the ability to know what's going on at the meetings. I would appreciate it. And I know it's late, but I'm going to say it anyway. Maybe somebody will see this. Yesterday, we spent some time, the Cops and Kids program spent some time over at the duck race, the Harrington Duck Race at Westville. Beautiful sunny day. And I've gotten we were raising money on our own. We were helping them out to set up and do things. We got a donation, and we were taking in donations. So it was a nice win-win for both charities. But what was really is we had a number of children come. Sergeant Dingy asked for a number of volunteers. He called some of the kids that aren't, they're not in the program right now. The program runs technically in the summer. And also the counselors who have worked previously, who will be working this year, and asked that they come and give their time on Sunday. And also an auxiliary police officer was there, which was nice. And I have to say that people showed up. Our chief showed up too with us in the morning, bright and early at 8 o'clock on a Sunday. And we set up and did everything. But what was really neat is these kids stayed throughout the day, and they did a great job. People came up and were very surprised and actually really pleased that the kids were well behaved and did what they needed to do. And obviously they were setting an example for the program, which we have here in our community. And so I thank all of you who are continuing to support the Cops and Kids program, and I applaud the children and their parents who made sure they got out and came and volunteered their time yesterday. As we said, it was a win-win, and we are still taking donations for the program. So keep those dollars coming. Buy your badges. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Discussion of next meeting date?
Monday, May 13th, 7 p.m. in council chambers.
Okay. Adjournment? So moved, Madam Chair. Okay, all in favor? This meeting's adjourned. Good night.